What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was banished and became the weapon of the gods? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. 13 years ago, I have called the council of deities today, and for good reason, said Hagoromo to the group of deities sitting before him. And what shall that be? Asked Boshu, the fire deity. I believe the savior of our cruel shinobi world is about to be born, and I called to see who was in favor of giving him our blessing, replied Hagoromo. Your naivety without justification has almost destroyed this shinobi world, and we didn't go as far as to give them our blessing. Why him? Asked Reiko, deity of lightning. I sensed this kid, he has Asura's spirit clinging to him harder than any other person in history. He is predicted to have the Kyuubi sealed inside of him, and so he will understand everyone's pain. And his determination to protect those he can call his friends will make him a great leader, said Hagoromo. And with the attack of Kaguya coming up within this kid's lifetime, what choice do we have? They murmured amongst themselves before they decided. We shall go through with it, we will give him our blessing and he will help save our shinobi world, said Futo, deity of wind. Then it is settled, Hagoromo said. He summoned a scroll from thin air and began to read. This is the blessing of the gods. A trust for you to do what is right. You shall obtain power of all 8 elements, from the deity of the elements, fire, water, wind, earth, lightning, light, dark and wood. From the 10 tails Jinchuriki you shall control the energy of nature, and from Hamura the all-seeing eyes. You will have the body of a Senju and eyes of an Uchiha. Wisdom of an Otsutsuki and chakra of 10 Uzumakis. I Hagoromo Otsutsuki bequeath the blessing of gods onto you, and use it to protect the shinobi worlds. He then looked to find Naruto's spirit, to see he was still in his mom's stomach. Save this world from Kaguya. He screamed as he sent the blessing to Naruto, and that starts his moments as a god amongst men. Hagoromo then looked down and said to himself, come into this world a man and come out a legend. Chapter 1, The flashback of Naruto's life. Point 1. Naruto was 4 when he got kicked out of the orphanage and has lived on the streets for months. Day in and day out he gets blank stares and beatings for being the 9 tails Jinchuriki. He accepted that people treat him like this for no reason, because he couldn't find a reason. He lived off of garbage for months and walked the hell of loneliness and confusion with seemingly no escape. But an escape was going to come soon. One day, Naruto was crying to himself in an alley. All of the depression was getting to him and he had negative thoughts. Why do people treat me this way? He thought to himself. What did I do to deserve this? I'll tell you, said the person standing at the front of an angry mob, Kyuubi. What do you mean Kyuubi? Said Naruto. I mean that you are the Kyuubi, said the leader. The 4th Hokage chose you to be its host, and now we must finish what he started. What? Naruto said, horrified. We will kill the Kyuubi. The leader exclaimed, while all of the people screamed in determination to kill what ended many people important to them. They ran at Naruto, but they suddenly stopped in their tracks. Currently standing in front of them was a man wearing ripped-up green clothing. He wasn't wearing his Jonin vest, but it is obvious he was one. He had black, spiky hair, and a small beard on his chin. Hello Naruto, said the man. My name is Shikaku Nara, and I have come to protect you. Naruto gave him a questioning look in response and then noticed that the shadows of him and everyone looked weird. I see you noticed, this is called the shadow possession jutsu. I connect my shadow to theirs and then control their body, said Shikaku. Then swiftly someone came down and swooped Naruto off his feet, and before he noticed, he was on the roof of the closest building. He was scared if something happened, and then he turned around to see a man with long, spiky, blonde hair and wearing a trench coat just standing there. And my name is Inoichi Yamanaka, we came to save you, said Inoichi. What? Asked Naruto, his face showing happiness, sadness and shock all at once. Tears streaming down his face and his vulnerability shone. Allow me to explain, said Inoichi. Back until she died in the Kyuubi attack, we were good friends with your mom. And my mom? Said Naruto, wanting to know about her. The person he wanted to meet beyond all else. Yes, Shikaku, my friend Choza who is currently caught up in a mission, and myself were all dear friends with her, said Inoichi. But back on topic, then the Kyuubi came and went on a rampage, buildings and training fields destroyed and many dead. The fourth Hokage tried to fight it, but it didn't prove too effective, so he decided to seal it. Then what? Asked Naruto. Inoichi had a single tear rolling down the left side of his face. As she was the only Uzumaki in the village, she was the only one with the means necessary to restrain the Kyuubi so it could be sealed, and died in the process, said Inoichi quietly. Naruto was shocked. He just heard his mom died protecting the village from the Kyuubi, and something else was bugging him. So, why protect me? Said Naruto. If I am the Kyuubi, why protect me? I learned this back in those times, that you are not the Kyuubi, you are its cell, said Inoichi. Your mom was the Jinchuriki before you, and she was the kindest person I've ever met. Then something came to his mind and he had a look of horror on his face. What's wrong? Asked Naruto. It's nothing, replied Inoichi. Flashback. Hey guys, it's Kushina's birthday today, what should we do? Asked Choza. Don't ask me, I'm at a loss, said Inoichi. Let's just do the cliché thing, anything else may be too much of a drag, said Shikaku. I guess it's not a bad idea, said Inoichi. So I guess the plan is just pretend we forgot the birthday, and set up a small party at one of our places later tonight, said Choza. So let's do this, they all said in unison. While they are setting up the party. They were all at Inoichi's house setting up the party, and they were close to done when suddenly. Knock knock knock. Shikaku, go check the door, that could be Minato, said Inoichi. What a drag, okay, I'll do it, responded Shikaku. He walked over to the door, only to open it and see Kushina. She was a bit taller than Shikaku, and had red hair going down to her waist. She also had light skin, blue eyes and a nice figure. Hey Kushina, what's up? Shikaku said, trying his best to stall for what little time they needed. Shit, why now, we are almost done. Thought Shikaku. Hey Shukaku. Why are you with them? Asked Kushina. Just hanging out, said Shukaku. Better question, what are you doing here? That's right, by any chance, do you remember what day it is today? Asked Kushina, trying to hold back her temper until she knew the answer. Should I? Asked Shikaku. She then just snapped. Slowly his face showed more and more signs of anger until her eyes became blank in pure rage. Her hair was more or less standing on edge and a fiery aura got released that was so strong, Shikaku could have sworn he saw it. Look, he said before he was cut off by. Shut up and get them out here, now, she screamed with such fierceness that Shukaku was sweating puddles, and he had to use every last ounce of willpower to remain standing. He merely nodded and walked towards the door and opened it. Inoichi and Shuza heard the scream and saw Shukaku, so they went out, only to experience something that no one deserved. There was so killing intent it could make a Biju crap its non-existent pants. Now, I will ask it again, said Kushina in a slightly calmer tone, but the key was nonetheless as before, what day is it today? They were about to say they didn't remember, when Inoichi said something that changed everyone's mind. It's not worth it guys, I'm just going to say it, said Inoichi in a shaky voice, it's your birthday, and why did you come so early? She calmed down substantially and gave them a confused look before Shukaku answered the question. We were setting up a party for you, and if you came 10 minutes later we would have been done, and I would not have been mentally scarred, said Shukaku before Choza said another point that got her mad again. We even had Minato on this, said Choza. Suddenly her killing intent went up again and she screamed. That's why. Do you know how heartbreaking it is when your fiancé forgets your birthday? Then they lost all strength in their knees and simply collapsed. Their shins wet from all the sweat puddling in the ground, and a feeling of being unable to move, and shivering uncontrollably being combined to form an uncomfortable situation to say the least. That is before she ran up and knocked them out. Flashback ends. I still don't know what happened after that, huh? Inoichi thought when the flashback ended. Okay, Naruto, Inoichi started, it's not safe outside, I'll bring you to my house. You may even make a friend. Chapter over. Extras. What happened after? Directly after the events of the flashback, Minato comes. Hey guys, you need some help? Minato said until he saw them on their stomach, inside a pool of their own sweat and some blood, and Kushina standing over them. What the hell happened? He said to Kushina, who gave him a glare that tells him, obey, or perish. Don't pull something like this again or your balls won't live to have second kids. Screamed Kushina. Wait, you're pregnant? Asked Minato in astonishment. You'll know the answer by tomorrow, Kushina responded with a devilish grin. Here we are Naruto, started Inoichi once a large mansion was in view, the Yamanaka compound. Naruto stared in awe at it. His room back in the orphanage was the biggest and only place he ever lived, and now he sees this huge place and it's overwhelming. You live here? Naruto asked. It seemed hard to believe that he and maybe 2 or 3 others lived there alone. So does the rest of the clan, Inoichi said, the ones that didn't move out at least. Inoichi then proceeded to knock on the door and someone with blonde hair of a slightly lighter shade opened the door. He looked sort of familiar to Inoichi, but noticeably younger and more physically fit. Hello Inoichi-sama, said the unknown Yamanaka. Hello Toru, Inoichi responded as they bowed at each other and Inoichi went to the clan head living quarters. Inoichi entered along with Naruto to see 2 people. One was cooking and one was trying to finish a puzzle. The one who was cooking had black hair. She was about 5 feet 7 inches, had black hair and had light skin. She had black eyes, or at least it seemed that way and at first glance, seems to have a light, outgoing personality. The one trying to finish a puzzle was a bit different though. She had bright, short, blonde hair, and light aqua eyes. She wore an orange and white dress and had an orange clip in her hair to keep it out of the way. But she was not even a month older than Naruto, 17 days if we go canon. This is my family, said Inoichi, holding out his hand to show them. Hello, both of them said as they walked to Naruto to greet him. Naruto simply tried to hide behind Inoichi because back in the orphanage, he never had a good experience with meeting kids. Don't worry, we don't bite, the black-haired woman said playfully, sticking out her hand for Naruto to shake it. My name is Mina, nice to meet you. Naruto hesitantly shook her hand before Ino went up to him and said, My name is Ino, do you want to play? Ino didn't even wait for a response as she took Naruto's hand and pulled him towards the half-finished puzzle on the floor. So, what's your name? Ino asked. Naruto, Naruto Uzumaki, Naruto said. So, do you want to help with the puzzle? Ino said, while attempting to pull a reluctant Naruto down to her. Well, Naruto muttered, not knowing if he would be interfering. Don't be nervous, this is fun, Ino said. Naruto just sat down next to her and helped whenever she had some trouble and put in a few pieces here and there. Back to Inoichi and Mina. They already got along, huh, Mina said. I guess so, replied Inoichi. Then soon after Mina checked the food and realized it was ready. Naruto, Ino, come here, food's ready, yelled Mina as she started putting some food, plates, as well as other silverware, on the table. Ino stopped what she was doing and ran over to the table with a soon-to-follow Naruto going as well. They all sat around a medium-sized, rectangular table and said their thanks. It almost saddened Inoichi as he felt the meaning of each word so strongly. It's been his whole life since anyone treated him to a meal, and he got to admit, with ramen being the highest quality of food he ate in his life, he was mentally drooling over the food, but just didn't want to seem rude. When it was over, they started conversation and ate. They all had a light-hearted conversation about things that happened to them, and Naruto just didn't know them well so he stayed out of it and ate quietly to the side. That is until Inoichi stated the question making up most of Naruto's mind at that moment. So Naruto, we will tell you what will happen to you after this, said Inoichi. Naruto listened intently so he could finally figure out what was going on. We predicted that eventually the day would come that people decide it's about time to get rid of it, stated Inoichi, saying it, instead of Kyuubi since Ino was there, so we made some preparations. Who's we? Naruto openly said. Choza, Shikaku and myself, Inoichi said. We decided that we will alternate between all of us to take care of you. It's not safe to live on the street anymore and after your mother, we can't just leave you, so we will take you in turns. Naruto was amazed that he was finally taken in, someone accepted him and will take care of him, or 3 families of someone's to be accurate. Are really? Naruto said happily, tears forming at the corners of his eyes ready to spew out. Yup, welcome to the first part of your new family, said Inoichi. Naruto started wiping away his tears of joy but Mina went and hugged him before she said, just let it all out. Naruto complied, tears streaming down Mina's shirt as he hugged back like he was never going to let go. This was soon followed by Ino hugging them both and saying, I have a brother. Inoichi hugged them all and said, this is going to be the best choice I ever made, I can tell already. This made Naruto cry even more. The joy was indescribable. The joy of not having a family for your whole life and suddenly having one that takes you in while everyone else treats you like trash. When that was over, Inoichi went over that they will get a bed for him eventually, but he would have to sleep on the couch for now, and how he will switch between the three families about once or twice a month and other stuff like that. Then Ino went over and said, "Let's go play again, Ni-san." Naruto nodded happily and went to play with her other toys. This actually consisted mostly of Ino trying to convince Naruto to play house with her dolls, but it was way better than nothing. Later that night Naruto went to sleep and thought, is this what love feels like? This went on for about 2 weeks. Naruto spends his time playing with Ino, whether it would be tag, puzzles, and Ino getting Naruto to pick flowers with her. He was really good at finding good ones and caught on making crowns with them pretty quickly, but picking flowers is one thing, wearing that is another, and no amount of convincing from Ino could get him to wear them. Often Sakura would come over, and Naruto, being who he is, played with them regardless of all the things that no 4-year-old boy in their right minds would want to do. The fun soon came to a temporary end as he met the person who would be taking care of him next came. "Okay, Naruto, the next person will come soon," Inoichi called out to Naruto, who was playing in the living room with Ino. Ding dong, they heard the doorbell and Inoichi walked towards the door. When he opened it, he saw Shikaku there, ready for Naruto. "Hello Shikaku," Inoichi said as he led him inside to see Naruto. "Hey Naruto," Shikaku called out to Naruto. Naruto's head turned and saw the person who caught that horde in a weird shadow. "Hello Shika," Naruto said, forgetting the last part of the name. "What is it again?" "Shukaku," he responded, "it's only been 2 weeks. "Sorry," Naruto said, scratching the back of his head in embarrassment. "Don't worry about it," said Shukaku. "Anyways, say goodbye to them, but don't worry, you'll be here again in a month or so," Shukaku said. Naruto nodded in response and hugged Ino. "I'll miss you, Ni-san," Ino said in a sad voice. "Don't worry, it's a month, it's not like it's that long of a time," Naruto said. "But, I will miss you too." Then Inoichi and Mina walked up to both of them and hugged Naruto as well. When the parents released their embrace, Ino kissed him on the cheek and said, "We love you, Ni-san," resulting in a nod from the parents. Naruto was, yet again, crying tears of joy, and a smile took hold that threatened to split his face. Naruto then wiped off the tears, stood tall, and with pride on his face he said for the first time, "I love you too." With that happy note, he left with Shikaku, wanting to meet the Nara family and meet another kid his age. Shikaku said his name was Shikamaru, right? Naruto thought. Shikaku and Naruto was walking for close to 10 minutes before a similarly large mansion came into view. This one had a black roof and thick layers of wood for walls. The doors were only slightly bigger than that of a normal house, and a large open area remains visible around it with hills and resting areas all around. Shikaku went up to the door, with Naruto right behind him, and knocked. Naruto, starting to feel a bit more nervous, timidly stood behind Shukaku and performing Hinata's trademark finger fidgeting. After a few seconds the door opened and there stood a woman with dark brown hair pulled back in a ponytail and similar colored eyes. She was wearing a reddish-pink t-shirt and a black skirt and a face that signifies that she just woke up. "Hello honey," Shukaku said to his now-revealed wife. "Hello," she responded, giving Shukaku a quick peck on the lips. "I heard you were coming with Naruto, where is he?" Shikaku leaned out of the way a little bit to show a Naruto timidly standing there. Even for a 4-year-old seeming small because of his posture and nervous aura. Shukaku's wife leaned down a bit and put her hand on Naruto's shoulder. Naruto looked up to see a gentle smile on her face and her saying, "Don't worry, you are welcome here." Naruto gave her a surprised face and she responded with, "My name is Yoshino, and you're Naruto, right? Nice to meet you." Naruto gave her a smile and nothing happened until she remembered something. "Oh yeah, my son is outside. He's a day older than Ino, maybe you will like him." Naruto gave her a quick nod before he walked outside to the backyard. He was expecting to see him running around or trying to find animals, but he was laid back on the grass, looking up at the clouds, and doing nothing. He passed quite a few Naras the way out, and he was the only one who looked remotely close to Naruto's age, so he walked closer. "Hello, my name is Naruto, you're Shikamaru, right?" said Naruto slightly nervously. Shikamaru just stood up and stretched and then turned around to see the spiky-haired kid walking towards him. Shikamaru was slightly taller than Naruto, and while his black hair isn't naturally spiky, the way he puts up his hair makes his head look like a pineapple. He wore a light green t-shirt and black short, and by the looks of it, he is unusually relaxed for someone of that age. Shikamaru nodded his head in response and Naruto responded sort of nervously, "Do you want to play something?" Shikamaru just shook his head and said, "It's too much of a drag, I don't want to run." Naruto just nodded his head and just walked around, finding animals such as deer, squirrels and many caterpillars. He always found animals intriguing but something else as well. As the minutes ticked by and Naruto found more intriguing things about the backyard, he turned back to Shikamaru. He wasn't sleeping, he was just laying there, not sleeping but looking up at the sky. Isn't he bored? Naruto thought to himself, wondering what was so interesting about cloud watching. Naruto walked towards Shikamaru and looked down at him. He just decided to join, so he laid down next to Shikamaru, and it didn't take him long before he got restless and suddenly asked, "What the hell is so interesting about doing nothing?" "Relax Naruto, you're way too uptight," said Shikamaru. "Look for shapes in the clouds. Perceive the freedom they have and allow the scene to relax you." Naruto considered those words carefully and took a deep breath. As he held it, he allowed his tension to build up, and released it at an exhale. While ever so slowly, he started to relax. He looked up at the clouds and shapes that he saw flooded his imagination. And he thought clearly, not quite at Shikamaru's level, but more clear than the hyperactive him. "That one looks like a bird, and that one sort of like an elephant." Naruto said, going on and on about shapes he sees. It was apparent to Shikamaru that despite his excited way of speaking then, he isn't as tense as before, and he is letting his imagination run wild. Over time Shikamaru started talking as well. "That one looks like a tree," said Naruto. "No, clearly a snake," said Shikamaru. "Okay, now that one is definitely a bowl of ramen," said Naruto, pointing at a new cloud. "Okay, I'll admit that much," responded Shikamaru. As time went on, even Naruto started becoming a bit more quiet and Shikamaru was enjoying having someone who could appreciate relaxing and looking up at the clouds, besides his father of course. "I'm glad you came, Naruto," Shikamaru thought to himself, looking at Naruto's more relaxed face. "Guys, dinner will be ready in an hour," screamed Yoshino to the two boys. "Okay, Mom," Shikamaru said in response. Yoshino just went inside, and had, right before a flashback, thought, "I guess it was a good choice after all." Flashback. The day after he and Inoichi saved Naruto, Shikaku was standing in the living room for an important conversation. "Yoshino, can you come here real quick?" Shikaku called out. It didn't take more than a few seconds before she came and asked. "What's wrong, darling? Remember I told you yesterday how the day finally came that the citizens of Konoha wouldn't tolerate Naruto's existence any longer?" Shikaku said. She nodded but then realized what he was implying and then said, "No, I'm not letting that happen." "I'm sorry, but I made a promise to Kushina that I intend to keep," said Shikaku. "We have a son now, how can you support allowing the thing that nearly decimated the village and killed our past Hokage near our own son?" screamed Yoshino. "You were childhood friends with Kushina. How can you say he is the Kyuubi?" said Shikaku in a slightly louder voice. "Well, he isn't a pure-blooded Uzumaki like Kushina. How would you know he can resist it?" asked Yoshino loudly. Shikaku realized that he isn't supposed to answer that, but for the sake of the promise, he will break the rule this one time, because the one who sealed the Kyuubi within Naruto is also the dominant half of Naruto's genetics. Realization suddenly struck Yoshino like lightning. Why Naruto's last name was Uzumaki? Keep in mind that Kushina giving birth was secret. Why he and Shikamaru were so close in age, and goddamn it, he looks like a younger version of Minato except with shorter hair, whiskers and Kushina's facial structure. It couldn't have been more obvious, but she missed it. "Look, whether you join me or not, I intend to at least give him a chance," said Shikaku, "so he will be here, at least for our first 2-week period and after we can continue this conversation, but give him a chance." Yoshino gave a nod in defeat and they went their separate ways, living their lives and mentally preparing to bring another kid in the house for 2 weeks. End flashback. Yoshino left her thoughts and quickly realized that the food was starting to overcook, so she turned all the stoves and the oven off and put the food into trays and bowls. Soon Naruto and Shikamaru showed up, and Shukaku soon after, and they sat around the table and started eating. But unlike in the Yamanaka household, he felt less tense and definitely less nervous. He even somewhat contributed to conversations, or what 4-year-old him would consider contributing. But his stay in the Nara house wasn't all cloud gazing. During those 2 weeks Naruto played ninja with other kids and impressed quite a few people. Keep in mind that the parents had no idea Naruto was playing with them at the time, so the kids had no reason to say no. But Shikamaru didn't participate every time, and when he did, it was for the first 2 rounds max, so Naruto met a few other kids. Choza even came for a drink at the Nara house with Inoichi, but he didn't bring Choji because it was a surprise. But it was a surprise to Naruto to see that despite all of the laziness that the 2 Shikas possessed, he did do some light training. 12 push-ups, 20 sit-ups, 15 jumping jacks, 10 squats and some taijutsu training daily. Naruto joined them for once but found it too easy, so he made a vow to do double that until it becomes too easy as well. But soon enough even that fun ended as Naruto went to the next house, Choji's. End. Extras. This is what happened at the night when Inoichi and Shuza came for a drink. Naruto walked up to the table and saw a small cup filled with a yellowish substance, and not knowing what it was, decided to smell it. He took a sniff and was in shock by its rancid, almost burning, smell. But then he looked and saw 3 Junins drinking it, and he was led to one logical conclusion. This must be some performance-enhancing drink that makes people stronger, and it tastes and smells disgusting due to the ingredients. Naruto thought to himself, but that won't stop me, I will get strong. So he lifted up the shot glass and downed it in one go. Choza saw this and said, "No, Naruto, you can't drink that." All 3 of the adults looked towards Naruto and the empty shot glass and noticed that he started going off balance. "Okay Naruto, go to Shikamaru's room and get some rest. You may need the sleep," Shikaku said. "You go to bed," Naruto screamed in a drunk voice as he leapt to Shikaku, and when he missed, proceeded to destroy everything. With the gods, Hagoromo heard a crashing noise, so looked in his plot machine of a crystal ball and saw the same kid he gave his blessing to, destroying the house, and screaming, "I'm not even tired." As a bunch of adults tried to hold him down. "Bacchus, here now," Hagoromo said. Soon after Bacchus appeared in a flashy entrance of light. "What up Gramps?" Bacchus said in a slurred voice. "As you are the god of booze, I gotta ask. Did you add your chakra into the blessing without permission and give our savior an enhanced drunken fist?" asked Hagoromo. "Actually, as the god of animals, I took the party animals and had them. Wait a second, why is there no party? I want a party," said Bacchus in a very slurred voice that was approaching a whining 6-year-old by the end. "How drunk are you?" asked Hagoromo. And Bacchus's response was a well-thought-out, "Why hiccup yes." A couple of days passed since the night of the Drunken Fist massacre and the house was still kind of a mess. It was also coincidentally the day Naruto would meet the last kid of the Ino Shika Choji Akamichi. "Hey Shikamaru?" asked Naruto as they lay down on the grass, cloud-gazing. "What's up?" responded Shikamaru. "You met Choji before, right?" Naruto said, to which Shikamaru gave him a nod. "What is he like?" asked Naruto. "You will probably like him more than me or Ino," said Shikamaru. "He is very kind. Loves to play ninja but gets excluded a lot because he's a bit slow, and lastly, he has a huge appetite." "He sounds fun, but no way he has a bigger appetite than me," said Naruto. "I've known him for a year and I've never gone 5 minutes with him not eating a potato chip," said Shikamaru. "I take that back," said Naruto, "but does he train?" "Yeah, but not as Shikaku may train you," said Choza as he walked towards Naruto and Shikamaru. The Akamichi clan's clothing has a weave of a special chakra metal mixed in with their clothes, and when chakra gets infused with the clothes, the weight increases. "I am actually carrying 80 kilograms as we speak." Naruto was boggled by this. He acted as if he were carrying nothing, but he is carrying almost 200 pounds, but after that shock he realized something. "Okay, I'm ready to go," said Naruto. Choza gave him a quick nod in response and Naruto gave Shikamaru help up. Naruto and Shikamaru then did their secret handshake, too hard to describe, not going to try, and said their byes. As Naruto and Choza walked inside they passed by Shikaku and Yoshino, and Naruto gave them a surprisingly hard hug for a 4-year-old. "Thank you. Thank you so much," Naruto said with some tears of joy coming from his eyes. They hugged him back and said, "Don't mention it, we are family, right?" Yoshino nodded in agreement and Naruto gave a final squeeze before he let go, wipes off his eyes and said his goodbyes. 10 minutes later, Choza and Naruto were walking, Naruto still too uncomfortable to break the ice, and a relatively normal-sized house came into view. "Is that your house?" asked Naruto. "Yes it is," said Choza. "I thought you were a clan head, why don't you have a big house like Shikaku for everyone?" asked Naruto. "We want our space, so we have a small village area for everyone to live in," said Choza. "Oh," Naruto said, not entirely understanding. "Okay." They knocked on the door, and out came someone with very tan skin, and looked a bit heavier than Choza. She has black hair and dark eyes as well as a purple shirt and brown shorts. It was Karu, Choza's wife. "I'm back," Choza said jokingly while receiving a kiss from Karu. She then looked down at Naruto and said, "Hello Naruto, don't be shy, come in." Naruto did, and immediately Choza started telling him, "Choji is in his room right now, he wanted to see you for days now." Naruto nodded and ran to the room before he realized he didn't know where it is. It felt like he searched every room before he found a chubby boy with spiky brown hair, a half light green, half dark green t-shirt, and white shorts. "You're Choji, right?" asked Naruto. Choji turned to the door and saw the spiky-haired boy standing there. "So you're Naruto?" He nodded before walking up to Choji and sat next to him. "Do you want a chip?" asked Choji. Naruto nodded and helped himself to a chip and realized that it was actually amazing. "What are these chips, they're so good?" asked Naruto. "They're Akamichi clan chips, we make amazing food. Just wait until dinner," Choji said as he literally drooled over the thought of dinner. "Is it better than the food at Ino's house?" asked Naruto. "Way better, and a lot more too," said Choji. Then Naruto started to drool and Choji looked at him and thought, "Is that what I look like when I drool?" They then continued to play with Choji's nearly endless supply of toys. 3 hours later, "I'm bored, let's go to the park," said Choji. Naruto nodded, and they left through the front door and ran to the park. Naruto ran ahead and then looked back to see a tired Choji, so he ran back and asked, "Why are you so tired?" "I just started weight training yesterday, I am carrying 5 pounds right now," said Choji. "Can I try it?" Naruto asked. Choji nodded his head and unzipped his jacket. He then handed it over to Naruto and Naruto put it on. Choji then continued to run, and Naruto could still keep up. "I guess this is definitely harder than normal," said Naruto. "I'm surprised you can keep up," said Choji. "It isn't that hard," said Naruto. A minute later an area with slides and swings came into view and no one there, so they ran faster and went on the swings. Naruto took of the jacket and did a competition to see who could swing the highest. After Naruto won that, they played a game of tag, and Naruto had the weighted jacket and was it. Choji started to run up the slide, so he ran to the ladder to get up to the top and accidentally ran into someone. This person was a girl with pink hair that Naruto recognized. "Sakura?" asked Naruto. "Naruto?" asked Sakura. "Sakura, I see you, you need to hide, bet," Ino said, and then she saw Naruto there. "Ni-san, what are you doing here?" asked Ino. "Playing tag with Choji," said Naruto. "I see you and Sakura are playing hide and seek, can we play?" Ino nodded without thinking and said, "2 people isn't enough for a good game anyways. Chouji, come here, we are playing hide and seek." Naruto called out to Choji. "Oh, come on, it's not fun with 2 people, Choji said before he saw Ino and Sakura. "Ino," Choji called out in surprise. "Hi Choji, nice to see you again," Ino said with a relatively neutral expression on her face. "So, let's play," said Sakura. They played for a bit until eventually Sakura's dad came to pick them up. A few terrible puns later, and Choji had just about enough of the park. "Hey Naruto, let's go. I'm sure dinner will be ready soon," said Choji. Naruto was about to nod, until he suddenly sensed fear and killing intent coming from a nearby alleyway. "Can you wait here a bit longer?" said Naruto. He didn't even wait for an answer as he dropped the weighted jacket he almost forgot he was wearing and ran towards the alleyway. In the alleyway we see a grown man and a little girl with dark blue hair and light purple eyes standing. The little girl shivering with fear at the man releasing the killing intent. "A Hyuga, huh?" said the man, "just my lucky day." The little girl just looked at the man in horror as he walked closer. She took a step back and found there was a wall in the way. You Hyugas are all scum, talking about how you're the most prestigious clan, but most of your members are just above slaves, said the man. Your clan has so much power but only ever think of the rich and themselves. You have eyes that view people's chakra, but not one of you become doctors, or do anything beyond the battlefield. Just a waste. The man pulled out a knife and raised it, and would have slashed if not for, leave her alone. He turned around, blanked out for a bit, and suddenly just chuckled. First the Hyuga heiress and now the Nine-Tails brat, this is the best day of my life. Naruto ignored it and ran towards the killer. Naruto kicked the killer, and after a small grunt of pain he stabbed Naruto in the calf. Naruto brought his leg back in pain and tripped back. My cousin, he said as he stabbed Naruto in the shoulder, blood dripping down his side, and he cringed in pain. My uncle, he said as he stabbed Naruto in his right arm, my grandpa, 2 friends and a nephew, all dead because of you. Naruto then saw the man raise his knife for the decisive blow, all because of the Kyuubi. Then all of a sudden, things started moving a bit slower. Naruto then tried moving, but realized he was moving pretty slow too, so he immediately moved out of the way. He then went to punch the guy and he realized that his arm was covered with orange flames. When he hit, the guy crashed into the wall. The guy looked at Naruto and saw that same boy, but with orange flames surrounding him, claws, fangs, very dark, thick and defined whisker marks, and a one-tomo Sharingan. After a quick chuckle in defeat he started losing consciousness. Who would have thought, said the guy weakly, the Kyuubi brat, an Uchiha. He then proceeded to lose consciousness and Naruto calmed down. He then ran up to the girl his age and noticed her shivering. Don't worry, I came to help, said Naruto. She then exhaled a breath she didn't know she was holding in. Thank you, said Hinata, bowing to Naruto. Naruto smiled to her and said, my name is Naruto Uzumaki, what's yours? Hinata Hyuga, said Hinata. It was nice to meet you. Hope I see you again soon, said Naruto. Hinata finally let it sink in that she had been saved, and looked at the boy and gasped at his savior, his deep blue eyes, spiky, blonde hair, and his smile that she adored. She blushed and looked down at the floor, before timidly saying, I hope so too. Naruto gave her a nod, and ran off. Where are you going? Asked Hinata. My friend is still waiting for me, gotta go, said Naruto as he started running. Wait, Hinata screamed in the loudest voice that her scared, 4-year-old vocal cord could muster. He turned around with a questioning look and Hinata blushed before saying, you didn't tell me your name. Naruto then smirked and said with a loud, confident voice, my name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I will be the next Hokage. Today seemed like a normal day to most people in Konoha. It was mid-January, and many of the birds migrated to the fire country, so the chirping sounds of birds and swaying of trees were heard, and shops were starting to open. But for Naruto, it was another day of acting. Naruto has a scroll with a special seal of his own design. This seal was for an undetectable transformation jutsu to anyone who signed it with their blood. He is currently transformed into the knuckle-headed idiot that everyone in the class knows and ridicules as Uzumaki Naruto. So he got up and realized that today is the graduation exam. Finally, today is the last day I need to act as this idiot, Naruto thought to himself. He then walked out of the room and realized that breakfast was already made, and that Inoichi and Mina were waiting for him. I knew you wouldn't take long, said Mina, smiling. Today is the graduation, how do you guys feel? Inoichi said to Ino and Naruto. I'm glad I don't have to act like an idiot after today, said Naruto, looking down and cringing at his orange jumpsuit. You know you didn't have to act like this, right? Said Ino. It's for my future, if I'm dead last, I get assigned with the top rookie and Kunoichi in the class, said Naruto. I don't want a team full amateurs. I know, said Ino. I'm glad I can finally treat Ni-san nicely, said Ino. The parents gave them a look of confusion before Naruto explained. I asked Ino to treat me like everyone else to help with my disguise. Same as Shika and Choji. How could you agree to bullying your brother? Screamed Mina. It took a lot of convincing, said Naruto. After that, they ate breakfast, mostly in peace. Until Naruto looked at the clock and he noticed something. Oh crap, we leave in 10 minutes. Naruto screamed. He then dashed around, getting ready and somehow managed to get to the door before Ino. Bye mom, bye dad, See you soon, said Naruto before he left, not even waiting for a response or Ino. Naruto then walked into class and sat in his normal seat near Sasuke. He looked around and saw most of the boys socializing, most of the girls either staring at Sasuke or talking about Sasuke, and Hinata alone in the corner. A few minutes later he saw Ino and Sakura trying to squeeze into the doorway, probably in the midst of another one of their competitions. Naruto sighed at the stupidity of this and then noticed Sakura was here and perked up quite a bit. Then before Naruto knew it, Sakura came running to his area and he decided to offer Sakura a seat. Hi Sakura-cha, Naruto said before he was cut off by Sakura pushing Naruto out of the way to get to Sasuke. Hi Sasuke-kun, Sakura screamed along with an Ino hot on her trail. I'm glad this ends tomorrow, Naruto thought to himself as he got up. Okay guys, settle down, Iruka said. Right after everyone sat down quietly, not wanting to get on the teacher's bad side today of all days. Today, as you all know, is the graduation exams, what you've been training all these years for. Everyone simply nodded and gave themselves a round of applause. Now onto the instructions, Iruka said. This test will be split up into 4 parts. Chakra-based techniques, taijutsu, shuriken jutsu and a written test, each embodying what is expected of a genin. And which Naruto is expected to fail in, said Kiba, just loud enough for his fellow classmates to hear. Everyone started laughing at Naruto, except for Hinata, who was too shy to defend him, the Ino Shikacho kids who were stopping themselves from beating up the entire class due to Naruto's wishes, and Sasuke because he didn't care. Can't even make a clone, but expects to become a genin, what an idiot, said a random kid in the class. He's so weak it's hilarious, said another random kid. He's going to be made a fool in front of Sasuke-kun again, said Sakura, and after a bit more laughter, Choji couldn't take it anymore. All of you shut up, screamed Choji, tears falling from his eyes. Make fun of me all you want, but don't you ever make fun of my brother again. Yeah, don't laugh at my Ni-san. Ino said, standing up and showing the face of pure rage. Sorry Naruto, I just couldn't take it anymore. For once it's not a drag, leave my bro alone. Shikamaru said in a tone that is the least Shikamaru anyone has ever heard. You guys, Naruto said just under his breath, admiring the scene. His brother and sister defending him, standing up to the class. As this was going on, Hinata was witnessing all of this and was debating in her head whether she should help. Should I help? I want to, but what if everyone makes fun of me after? Or worse, what if Kusama finds out? I know he doesn't like Naruto-kun. She debated to herself. But Naruto-kun saved my life 8 years ago, and it's about time I helped him. Hinata then proceeded to quietly and timidly get up from her seat, and after a bit of hesitation, she screamed, "Leave Naruto-kun alone." It wasn't too loud but the entire class was flabbergasted. It was obvious she liked Naruto, but this is the first time she talked within Naruto's line of hearing, let alone that loud. Noticing the stares that she was promptly receiving, she sat back down, and basically hid behind her desk. Naruto then realized that he was being defended. Even someone he barely knew was trying to protect him. They were possibly giving up their reputation over defending the class loser, someone whom no one liked. And then after about a minute in that train of thought he then snapped, "It's damn time I started defending myself. I bet if Naruto was serious he could kick everyone here's butt." Screamed Ino. Yeah right, he's a baka with no skill. I bet he'll fail the graduation exam a 4th time, said Sakura. Everyone stop picking on your classmate, Iruka said, and he was going to continue if not for. It's okay, Iruka-sensei, Naruto said, I got this. He then stepped forward with a confident pose and stood on one of the chairs. All of the people in the class stared at him, and he knew, there was no turning back now. To those of you who were defending me, Ino, Choji, Shikamaru, Hinata, Iruka, I hold only respect for you. But for the rest of you, I'm tired of it, he said as a scowl formed. My goal was to pretend to be weak so I can be paired up with a better team. But I am tired of all of you, Naruto said before he turned his voice quieter but no less menacing. Tired of the treatment, tired of the solitude, tired of being called weak and pretending to lose to the weakest Uchiha I ever knew. I'm tired of hiding. Naruto went into his back pouch and took out a small scroll. He untied the knot holding it shut and rolled it open in midair. He then bit his thumb and swiped his bloodied finger across the length of the scroll that appeared to have some sort of seal on it. With a swipe he rolled it shut and jumped off the chair and onto the main staircase. He slammed the scroll on the ground, which created a dent, and he screamed, "Permanent transformation release." Smoke appeared all around him, and the class couldn't see him, but a powerful aura was felt. As the smoke started to dim, a silhouette started to form, and a few seconds later, he was visible. This person looked like Naruto, but it's like he's a totally different person. His aura let out power never felt by most of the kids in their life. His demeanor became serious and intense, but even that was an understatement. His posture was upright and it felt like he was prepared for anything. His eyes shut, but it felt like everyone in the class was under his demeaning glance, one that showed superiority, power, and made the kids feel like ants. Even Sasuke felt like his pride got ran over, both because of his aura, and being called the weakest Uchiha Naruto ever met. His folded arms were basically taunting them to give it their best shot, but the class was too terrified to try. Even his clothes changed. Rather than the annoying, orange jumpsuit, he now wore a white cloak with a hood and the sleeves ripped off. Underneath he wore what seemed to be high-level, shinobi battle gear with long-sleeved pants, but his shirt sleeves were promptly ripped off of those too. This showed off his completely ripped shoulders and arms, which were only covered by fingerless gloves on each hand. The girls were staring at him, the guys envied him. Hinata promptly fainted, but only after turning beet red, and Sasuke looked at him with interest. It's not what you think. But undoubtedly, everyone shared the same confusion, and thought, what in the actual shit is going on right now? He then opened his blue eyes that could make even the bluest of seas metaphorically look at him in envy, eyes that showed power and resolve, rather than idiocy and immature eagerness. He then put his arms down to his sides and said in a nearly unrecognizable voice, "It's damn time I showed you just how powerful I really am." Everyone was still staring at Naruto, his muscular physique, his new, matured, eyes and face, and his badass cloak. From Sasuke to Sakura to Iruka and every last kid in the class, nobody could believe that this was the same hopeless, immature prankster they have known for the last 4 years. Is that really Naruto? Sakura thought to herself. Am I being surpassed by him? No, it can't be, Sasuke thought to himself, but keeping his stern, emotionless look on his face. So this is my hero, the one who saved me all those years ago, thought Hinata to herself. It was strange that he was stronger as a 4-year-old than at 12, and the one standing here, he's the one who stole my heart. His deep blue eyes, gorgeous face and power radiating off of him. He's the one who saved me that fateful night, the one I love. After that session of silence, Sakura decided to be the one to break the ice. Naruto Yubaka, a transformation jutsu doesn't make you stronger than my Sasuke-kun, she said, clearly denying the class's recent discovery. You're the same old Naruto. You're right, Sakura, I am the same old Naruto, Naruto said, but it's what you call Naruto that's wrong. Hinata's interest has reached its peak, so she decided to check Naruto's chakra network, and the discovery blew her away. Sakura, you may want to take back what you said about Naruto-kun, said Hinata. And why is that? Asked Sakura. Think of it this way, stated Hinata, take you, me, Sasuke, Iruka, and the rest of this class's chakra reserves combined and multiply it by about 8. That's how big his is. The whole class looked at her like she was crazy, and someone else was about to speak until. Guys, we have a graduation exam to get to, so if you don't want to spend another year at the academy, let's get a move on, said Iruka. After those words everyone sat down pretending that their focus has changed, but they still showed obvious signs of interest on their faces. Okay, now that you're in your seats, time for the written exam, said Iruka. Then 2 teachers started passing out tests to all of the students in the class, but made obvious looks of confusion when they felt the aura of this new Naruto. Now, this is a 20-minute, 20-question test about what we learned over our time at the academy, said Iruka, everything from what shoes are best for infiltration to basic math that will be useful on the field. Spend your remaining time studying, the test starts in 12 minutes. Then everyone groaned. Naruto's great revelation has costed the class a reduced study session for the test, so they had to hurry it up. In a rush, Naruto didn't notice that he ended up sitting next to Hinata, so he decided to tell her something he's been holding in. Hinata? Thank you, Naruto said quietly to a now blushing Hinata. Thank you for not following the example of others. Thank you for treating me nicely when you had no reason to do so. Don't thank me, Naruto-kun. You saved me all those years ago, so I have every reason to be nice to you, said Hinata. So yes, I did have a reason to treat you nicely. It's because you're my hero, Naruto-kun. Hinata then realized what she said, so she seemingly teleported over to a corner and curled up into a ball of sheer social anxiety. Naruto then blushed and smiled before he continued doing what little studying he needed. Everyone, the test starts in 2 minutes, get ready, Iruka said. This was followed by a minute of people putting their studying materials away and then another minute of people staring intently at the clock before they could flip their tests over. 3, 2, 1, you may begin, said Iruka. Then everyone turned their tests over and Naruto was surprised at how easy the test questions are. Questions like, what kind of missions do you take for the first 6 months of being a genin? What is the name of the pill you use to replenish chakra? And, if you have 3 days to make it to a location 2000 km away and you spend a third of the time taking breaks, sleeping, eating, etc., what is the average speed you need to go to make it with the least time to spare? Were present and Naruto didn't even need any tricks to answer them. 5 more minutes, yelled the teacher, not loud enough to be a scream, but loud enough that even Naruto, Hinata, and the 5 other people in the back could hear clearly. As of that point, Naruto just finished his last question, and he seemingly started a chain of test finishers that started with Sasuke, Sakura, Hinata, Shikamaru, some random person and then Shino. This constant stream of people kept coming until the time was up and 2 people complained that they didn't finish on time. Okay, you are now done with the written test, said Iruka. You have 10 minutes to get to the shuriken target field, so no rush. Iruka then shunshined out of the building and the rest of the class decided to take a leisurely stroll. How do you think you did? Asked Naruto to Hinata. The test wasn't too hard, I think at least 90%, said Hinata. What about you? Same, said Naruto. I guess it's about time to show the world my shuriken jutsu. Hinata just nodded in response, too deep in thought at how she talked to Naruto more today than the entire 4 years at the academy. It was smart what you did, said Hinata, to pretend to be the class clown so you'd get picked with the better team. That was smart. I didn't want the people on my team to hold me back too much, so I thought about how to get the best team, and I came up with this, said Naruto. They then talked a bit longer until 10 minutes were up and the teacher gave instructions on the shuriken jutsu test. Okay, now comes the shuriken jutsu test, said Iruka. This test shows me how good you are at using shuriken. Your goal is to hit as many targets as possible, in as short a time frame as possible. Iruka then pointed at the 10 targets behind him, each yellow, wood circles with a large black circle in the middle. They were each connected to a different tree, and about 8 to 9 inches in diameter. You will each be handed a shuriken pouch with 28 shuriken in it. Your goal is to hit the targets, once each, as fast as possible, said Iruka. Hit the yellow part, you get 3 points, the black part and you get 5 points. Now, there are a few catches. Each second you take subtracts a point. Each shuriken you miss subtracts a point, and if you run out of shuriken you automatically fail. You have to get at least 10 points to pass, besides that, anything goes. Any questions? After a bit of murmuring along the students, but no questions, the scarred Chunin said, okay, let's begin, we've wasted enough time already. Step up when you hear your name. I will only mention the scores of the important characters. Aburame Shino. Shino then stepped up and grabbed 2 shuriken, 1 in each hand, got in position, and then go, Iruka said as he started the timer. Shino then threw both his shuriken, one immediately after the other, grabbed 2 more, rinse and repeat. When he finally managed to hit all the targets once, Iruka stopped the timer. It revealed 8.8 seconds. He looked at the landing points of the shuriken to see 2 missed, 9 hit yellow and 1 bullseye. Factoring that all in got Shino 21.2 points, well over the 10 points needed to pass. Shino then stepped back to where all the academy students are and waited there for everyone else to finish. For the sake of time, I'll just make a list of all the scores in order of last name up until Sasuke Naruto. Ready, set, go. Akamichi Choji, 13.6 points. Haruno Sakura, 18.6 points. Hyuga Hinata, 22.7 points. Inazuka Kiba, 20.1 points. Nara Shikamaru, 16.5 points. After all of them went, as well as a bunch of cannon fodder, it was Sasuke's turn. He got his shuriken pouch ready, looked at the targets, and waited for the signal. "Ready, go," said Iruka as he started his stopwatch. Sasuke then quickly grabbed 2 shuriken from his pouch and threw one of them. He then got the second one and hit the thrown shuriken with it, scoring 2 bullseyes. He got 4 more and threw them at the same time, half of them hitting bullseyes and half hitting the yellow. For the last 4, he hit individually, scoring 4 more bullseyes, and Iruka started in mild shock at the time and results. 0 misses, 2 yellow hits, 8 bullseyes, and achieved in 6.2 seconds, said Iruka as he racked up the points, 39.8 points, 9th best score in the graduation exam's history. All of Sasuke's fan club cheered unrelentingly, hurting everyone's ears as Sasuke let out a smirk, content with his score. "Hey Dobi," Sasuke let out, "beat that." As Sasuke walked out of the way to let Naruto have his turn, Naruto put on a similar smirk and said, "Gladly." Naruto stepped up to the area, not even waiting for Iruka to call him. Iruka stood, ready in hand on the stopwatch. Naruto stood with a determined look on his face, and his hand in the pouch ready to launch as soon as he heard go. "Ready, go," Iruka said, immediately pressing the start button. Naruto immediately threw the shuriken at a relatively slow speed and then flashed through 4 hand signs too fast for most to see. "Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu," Naruto exclaimed, all the while controlling the location that the shuriken pop up in. 9 more shuriken popped up, and immediately after, hit all the targets at once, landing 10 bullseyes simultaneously. Iruka stopped the timer, a look of 110% shock present on his face, reflecting the only thing running through his mind at that moment. "Oh my fucking god." Iruka then finally gained his composure to a reasonably possible extent and just barely said, 0 misses, 0 yellow hits, 10 bullseyes, and in 1.2 seconds. 48.8 points, highest in the graduation exam's history, moving Sasuke's position down to 10th, he said wide-eyed. The reactions of this were pretty varied. Iruka and the 2 other senseis watching looked in shock, fully aware that what Naruto did was perfectly allowed and legit. Just about every boy in the class except Sasuke just looked as if the 3 Sannin just walked into the area. Sasuke had a face of sheer horror and hurt pride. Hinata was doing somersaults and cartwheels in her head. She was so happy, and Sasuke's self-proclaimed fan club. "Well, Naruto, you're the dead last. No way you can do that," said random fangirl number 1. "No way you beat Sasuke-kun. You're the Dobi, he's number 1, said random fangirl number 2. "You must have cheated somehow, it's the shuriken, isn't it? They were just better than Sasuke's," said random fangirl number 3. "Wait, he did hand signs, this isn't ninjutsu, Naruto has to restart," said Sakura. This ranting of every screeching fangirl in the whole class lasted for another 3 minutes before the teachers decided they had enough of the meaningless blundering. "Guys, can you be quiet so I can answer you complaints?" screamed Iruka, so madly that his head seemed larger than the rest of his body. The girls finally stayed quiet so the teacher could talk. "Okay, now what I was about to say was that what Naruto did was allowed because..." Iruka was about to say why, but the girls started screaming in complaint again. This didn't even last 5 seconds before the whole class, especially Naruto and Iruka, let out a shitload of killing intent, causing the girls to start sweating and shaking uncontrollably, but most importantly, shut up. "Now what I was going to say," Iruka said, putting a lot of emphasis on going. "Shuriken jutsu is trying to hit a target as accurately and quickly as possible with projectiles. Now hearing that, why would jutsu that enhance your shuriken throwing be against the rules?" This time, rather than just lash out, Sakura just raised her hand, like a student about to answer a question in class, not a raving fangirl. "Yes, Sakura," Iruka called. "I would guess because there is supposed to be a ninjutsu test in a bit that we aren't supposed to use chakra yet," said Sakura. "Now, if you would recall my instructions, I specifically said, besides that, anything goes," said Iruka. "Most people decide to dismiss it, but if used properly can cause you to do far better." All the students in the class, excluding Naruto, just standing in the corner like a badass, looked at the teacher in interest, mentally begging him to explain. "Before you guys came along and changed the top 10 list, there was a previous to 10, and out of them 9th place, 5th place, Third place and first place all used chakra-based techniques to help them, said Iruka. Now, with that being said, very few actually bother to use techniques that would help them, because they simply don't have the techniques or don't look past the instructions. All the students looked at him, stuck between being content with the answer and feeling that what Naruto was doing isn't correct. But they gave up and just let it be until the exams ended. They called out Ino out and she scores. Okay, now it's time for the next test, said Iruka. It's time for the taijutsu test. Then all of a sudden, a man appeared. He was around Iruka's height with light brown eyes, light skin and white hair going down to the bottom of his neck. He wore the standard Konoha uniform with a blue, long-sleeve shirt that was partially covered by a Konoha Chunin flak jacket. He wore long blue pants that were bandaged around the bottom and he wore his forehead protector as a bandana that covered the whole top of his head. This was Mizuki, one of the various Chunin instructors at the academy. Mizuki will be the one you will face for this test, said Iruka. To this Naruto let out a maniacal grin, finally having an excuse to beat the shit out of his least favorite teacher. Mizuki will be the one you face for the test, said Iruka. At this, Naruto let out a maniacal grin, finally having an excuse to beat the shit out of his least favorite student. While Naruto was thinking about what he would do to Mizuki, Iruka explained rules like no weapons, he decides when the match is over, Mizuki would be going easy, etc. The class nodded in understanding and walked towards the training fields for the spar. They were right next to it though, so it wasn't a long walk. Not even a minute later, everyone got on the training court and awaited their turn to go. Mizuki waited for his first student to come up, and Iruka stood there, holding his clipboard. Like last time, I will only mention the important people. May Aburame Shino please enter the ring, said Iruka. In response, Shino calmly walked onto the training court and stood in a fighting stance, awaiting the scarred Chunin to start the match. Ready, begin, Iruka said. Mizuki was the one who started, launching a weak punch at Shino. Shino then appeared to block with his left arm but actually pushed Mizuki's arm out of the way and landed a solid right hook to his face, or at least solid to an academy student. Shino then tried to land a sweep kick that Mizuki backflipped over. Then came an exchange of fists that ended in a punch to the stomach by Shino, flowing smoothly to a weak uppercut to Mizuki's jaw. Okay, that's enough. Shino, you pass, Iruka said in a monotone voice. Next up, Akamichi Choji, may you please step up to the training field. Choji walked up to the training court and stood in his fighting stance, ready to go. Ready, begin, Iruka said. This fight wasn't an immediate start. In fact, they waited almost a minute after before Choji started. He launched his right fist towards Mizuki, who managed to block it. Mizuki then aimed a right cross at Choji's face, but Choji blocked it with both of his arms. Mizuki saw the wide opening and aimed a roundhouse kick at Choji's back. Choji was expecting this, however, and wrapped his arms around Mizuki's leg, catching it as some sort of headlock. After about 3 to 4 seconds of struggle, Choji started spinning, all while holding Mizuki's leg. This went on until Mizuki fell and rolled away from Choji on the floor. Okay, that's enough. Choji, you pass, said Iruka. Next up, Haruno Sakura. Sakura then walked onto the training field, staring intently at Mizuki, mentally preparing herself for this fight. Maybe Sasuke-kun will go out with me if I impress him enough, internal Sakura said, hearts in her eyes. Ready, begin, Iruka said, starting the match. Sakura then rushed over to Mizuki and jumped at him in an attempt to punch him. This was responded with Mizuki leaning out of the way. As soon as she landed, she turned around and tried to kick Mizuki. To which Mizuki blocked the kick. While Sakura was vulnerable, Mizuki attempted to punch Sakura. But this was responded with Sakura clumsily jumping backwards out of the way. For the next while, this kind of exchange ensued. Mizuki mostly dodging and blocking until Sakura had to defend. This lasted longer than any of the fights thus far, but nobody got knocked down. Eventually though, Sakura showed signs of exhaustion due to her low stamina and chakra reserves and started breathing hard. Have I not shown enough? I've lasted this long, Sakura said. Looking at Iruka, I guess I'll have to finish it while I have enough energy to do so. Sakura then pumped some chakra into her muscles and jumped forward quickly. When she was right in front of Mizuki, she crouched down and landed a sweep kick at Mizuki. This didn't knock him down, but it kept him off balance just long enough to land a solid blow in Mizuki's face, just barely able to knock him over. Okay, that's enough. Sakura, you pass, Iruka said. Hyuga Hinata, may you please step onto the fighting ring. Hinata timidly nodded her head and slowly walked onto the training course, slightly sweating due to the nervousness, despite knowing that the teacher won't hurt her. Am I good enough for this, she thought, looking at Mizuki's serious, almost intimidating, demeanor. Should I give up? Am I not meant to be a genin? Hinata thought to herself, and most definitely not being incognito about it either. Her face showed every last bit of doubt and nervousness she was internally feeling. Naruto saw it and decided to do something about this. Hinata, Naruto called out to her, his eyes showing warmth and comfort in them and a smirk present on his face. Hinata looked in his direction, her troubled look eased slightly but not completely. She leaned her head to the side and had a questioning look on her face. Do your best, okay, you got this, Naruto said, giving her a warm smile and a thumbs up. Hinata's facial expression immediately changed, taking a shocked expression until it morphed into one of determination. Hi, Hinata said in understanding, getting into the gentle fist stance and activated her Byakugan. This is new, thought Mizuki. Ready, begin, said Iruka. Hinata immediately ran forward, not wanting to waste too much chakra on her Byakugan before the ninjutsu test begins, and knowing full well Mizuki won't attempt to land first blow against someone with the gentle fist martial art. She launched a palm at Mizuki's abdomen, which was just barely avoided by Mizuki. Mizuki then attempted a kick at Hinata's face, only for her to duck from the strike. Hinata didn't waste any time afterwards. As soon as she got in position, she struck a chakra point on the right side of his hip, causing him to limp as he tried to move away. Hinata then attempted to strike a couple more chakra points on Mizuki's body, but every time she tried, Mizuki just slapped her hand to the side. This came to an end however when Hinata struck a major chakra point on Mizuki's right shoulder, effectively weakening Mizuki's right arm. With Mizuki's right arm and leg weakened, it left the entirety of Mizuki's right side relatively open. She seized the opportunity and landed a gentle fist strike at the right side of Mizuki's stomach, giving Iruka enough to say that she passed. Okay, that's enough. Hinata, you passed, said Iruka. Hinata suddenly let out a breath she didn't even know she was holding and a look of relief glossed over her facial features. This then ended up turning into a smile before she said, hi. She released all of the chakra points she struck on Mizuki before getting back up. With that match over with, Hinata walked over to the sidelines, and right next to Naruto at that. Naruto watched Hinata as she came back, striding in her happy and confident mood as she let out a beautiful smile. Her posture wasn't slouched, her fingers weren't fidgeting, and she wasn't looking down. And when she got to the sidelines, she looked at Naruto straight in the eye as she said, thank you, Naruto-kun. This new, happy, relatively confident persona of Hinata was new, to say the least, and secretly, he liked it a lot. Naruto blushed a little bit at this, and said, no problem, Hinata-chan. Hinata-chan? Hinata thought to herself in response, almost letting out a tear at the honorific. Overwhelmed since this one word is more progress than she made in almost 8 years. She then had to temporarily put those thoughts to the side, since now is about the worst time to faint. She managed to quickly nod before turning to face a direction in which Naruto couldn't see her face. Once in said position, Hinata gave way to a blush that encompassed her entire face, unknown to a Naruto who still had a light blush on his. Next up, Inuzuka Kiba. May you please step onto the fighting ring, Iruka said. The Inuzuka let out a toothy grin as he jumped onto the battlefield. As soon as he got there, he put his puppy on the ground, and it snarled, signaling that it was ready for battle. Ready, begin, Iruka said. Inuzuka Kiba, being the brash and restless one that he is, just jumped into action with his puppy. Kiba punched Mizuki, only for Mizuki to smoothly dodge out of the way. This was punished however by Kiba's puppy, Akamaru, biting his leg. Mizuki frantically tried to get Akamaru off his leg, but his lack of focus was punished by a punch in the face by Kiba. Little did Kiba know that Mizuki actually braced for the punch, so he didn't get knocked over, much to Kiba's dismay. Also the shock from the punch made Akamaru let go. Seeing that he had his mobility back, Mizuki noted that from that point on, He had to keep track of both the human and the dog. This made combined attacks just about useless, which made the fight last far longer than it reasonably should. Almost 2 minutes later, Kiba and Akamaru were panting, the man far more than the dog. Kiba had to put up an all-out assault in the attempt to get the teacher distracted enough for Akamaru to strike, but this didn't lead to anything, so instead he changed strategies. When they finished panting, both Kiba and Akamaru ran straight towards Mizuki and attacked together, hoping to overwhelm Mizuki to the point that one of them could land a substantial blow. This ended up working in the first 10 seconds as Kiba landed a jab at Mizuki's jaw, which then transitioned to a knee to the gut, which Akamaru took advantage of to bite Mizuki's heel. Iruka, feeling that he's seen just about enough, said, "Okay, that's enough." "Inuzuka Kiba, you pass?" Iruka said. Kiba let out a grin to that, and walked towards the sidelines, where he stood to see the rest of the matches. Before Iruka announced the next match, he walked onto the training court and hovered his hand just over the wound in Mizuki's ankle. From Iruka's hand, green chakra was released, slowly healing the puncture wounds in Mizuki's ankle. He then did the same thing for the wound on Mizuki's left calf, and then he left to the sidelines. "Okay, now, will Shikamaru Nara please come onto the fighting ring?" Iruka said. Originally, the lazy Nara thought maybe to just say, "No thank you," but then he realized what his mom would do to him when she finds out, so he walked onto the field, and put up a lazy fighting stacks. This fight is the worst out of all the 9, so I'll skip it in order to get to the juicy fights. Just imagine it how it would be like in canon, except for slightly more physical training because Naruto is around during some of the father-son training sessions. Shikamaru finished the match after over 6 minutes. The fight wasn't exciting to say the least. In fact, people were split between thinking that Shikamaru did the bare minimum to pass, to thinking that he didn't even really deserve it. But rules are rules, and Iruka said that he passes, so he does. But the next match is expected to make up for the monstrosity of the last match. "Next up, Uchiha Sasuke. May you please come onto the fighting stage," said Iruka. At the mere mention that it was his turn, just about every female in the class were squealing and cheering Sasuke good luck. But Sasuke ignored them as he walked onto the fighting stage. The Uchiha stared intently at Mizuki for a few seconds before entering the fighting stance of the Uchiha clan's interceptor fist. This led to Mizuki entering his own fighting stance, staring at Sasuke. They remained like this, awaiting the beginning of the match, which came soon. "Ready, begin," said Iruka. Sasuke was the first to go, running at Mizuki with silent steps. Mizuki was expecting a punch, so he blocked, putting his arms in an X position in front of his face. But to Mizuki's surprise, Sasuke didn't go for a punch. Instead, he stopped himself at the last second and launched a kick at him, placed specially to where his foot bypassed Mizuki's block and hit him in the chin. From then on, Mizuki decided that he may have to go a bit harder on Sasuke, and it turned into an epic match. In the perspective of all the fangirls, of course. With Mizuki seemingly reeling from the kick, Sasuke tried another punch only for it to be caught by Mizuki. With a smirk, Mizuki tried to punch Sasuke, only for Sasuke to lean out of the way, making the fist smoothly move past his head. Then Sasuke dropped to the ground and attempted a sweep kick, which Mizuki easily jumped over. But Sasuke was expecting this, so before Mizuki made it to the ground, Sasuke got up and jabbed at Mizuki's stomach, landing a solid blow. Mizuki, having braced for it, didn't get the wind knocked out of him like Sasuke would have expected, and when he landed a blow on Sasuke's unguarded chest. With both Sasuke and Mizuki about 2 meters away from each other, they went back into a fighting stance, awaiting some opening. "Okay, that's enough," said Iruka. "Sasuke, you pass." This predictably led to the squealing and cheering of about a third of the class and many people glad they won't be attending the academy next year. "Okay, may Uzumaki Naruto please step onto the fighting stage," Iruka said. Naruto let out a smile that had the resemblance of a sadistic grin and walked onto the fighting stage, ignoring all the boos that most of the class let out. When Naruto got there, he paused for a second and looked at Hinata one final time before getting into a fighting stance. Mizuki did the same, but let out a smirk, feeling that this would be easy. "Ready, begin," Iruka said. Mizuki immediately launched himself at Naruto and aimed a punch, to which Naruto just pushed Mizuki's arm aside. Then Mizuki kicked Naruto, to which Naruto simply caught his foot and pushed him back. Even that soon into the fight, the fact that Naruto wore a cloak while he fought got on his nerves. "Time out," Mizuki said. "Naruto, take off your cloak, it's getting on my nerves." "Oh, yeah, I guess it's a bit hard to fight with it in the way," Naruto said with an underlying tone of mischief. So after he said that, Naruto then took the cloak off of himself, folded it neatly into a square and set it down in the middle of the battlefield. Mizuki thought this was another one of Naruto's ways to piss Mizuki off, so he didn't even try to ask Naruto to move it. "Kiba, may you please move the cloak off of the battlefield," Mizuki said. Hi, Kiba said in a non-caring tone as he walked onto the battlefield to pick up the cloak, and he failed. Kiba was surprised it didn't budge easily like how a cloak was supposed to, so he tried again, and failed. So he repositioned himself into a heavy lifting stance and grabbed the cloak with both arms and lifted. But this time, even as sweat started to fall from Kiba's forehead, only the side of the cloak he was lifting came up, and only an inch above the ground. "Sasuke, come here, there's something up with this cloak," Kiba said. "What, it's just a cloak, how hard can it be?" said Sasuke. "Just come and help me," said Kiba. "Okay, fine," said Sasuke in annoyance as he walked to the cloak. He budged Kiba to the side a little as he grabbed the cloak, and lifted, and it just barely went up. "You're right," Sasuke said. "Kiba, let's do this together." "Right," Kiba said. The rest of the class looked at them dumbfoundedly. It was a cloak, and two people had trouble lifting it. Kiba and Sasuke each took a side of the square that the cloak was folded into, and started lifting. With their combined effort it came off the ground and they slowly walked over to the sidelines, leaving a trail of sweat in their wake. When they got there, Kiba's and Sasuke's hands slipped and it fell from about 4 feet up, leaving a mini crater where it fell. There was a varied reaction amongst the class. Most of the class looked in surprise. Sasuke and Kiba were too busy trying to catch their breath to give a reaction. Hinata had a look of admiration on top of her surprise and the Ino Shikacho kids were smirking. But above all else, Mizuki was scared. After basking in their reactions, Naruto put his hands in the ram seal and said, "Kai." When that happened, a small burst of chakra appeared from each of Naruto's joints, signaling one thing to the two Chunin watching, a resistance seal. "Oh Iruka, just wondering, can you restart the match? That 70 kilo, 154 pounds. Weight on top of the resistance seals kind of made it hard to move," said Naruto with a sheepish grin while scratching the back of his head. Iruka only nodded, not trusting his mouth at the moment, and restarted the timer. When Iruka's voice came back he put his hand up and said, "Ready. Begin." An instant after Iruka said go, Naruto was already at Mizuki's position. Mizuki doubled over in pain due to Naruto's hand being acquainted with Mizuki's gut. Not even a second later, he removed his hand from Mizuki's stomach and sent an axe kick onto Mizuki's back, causing a crater in the dirt ground even bigger than the one his cloak left. "I'm not the one you threw textbooks at, Mizuki, and it was long past the time I got my revenge," said Naruto, his arms folded and looking away from Mizuki. His demeanor serious and slightly sad as he recounted the constant bombarding Mizuki gave him during sparring drills and the textbooks Mizuki threw at him when he fell asleep in class. Then he did a 180 both literally and figuratively as his face took a more positive and cheerful look as he looked at Iruka, enjoying the shocked look on his face. "So, how did I do?" Naruto said. "Hospitalized a counselor in 1.8 seconds. I believe this makes you the new record holder for both the Shuriken Jutsu and Taijutsu tests," Iruka said. "In other words, you pass." Naruto smiled at this before resetting his resistance seals and casually placing his 70-kilo cloak back on. After doing that, he walked back to the sidelines next to Hinata, where he stood there, partially oblivious to the fact that he just incapacitated the sparring partner and damaged the fighting arena. Meanwhile, all the kids, and Iruka, were dumbfounded by what they saw. Naruto, the dead last of the class, hospitalizing a Chunin and casually picking up what took both Sasuke and Kiba to lift off of the ground. But Naruto was ignoring the stares, and began talking to Hinata. "So Hinata, enjoy the match?" Naruto asked, blushing slightly due to the wide-eyed stare that Hinata was giving him. For an answer, Hinata just nodded in response, still too dumbfounded to actually speak coherent words. "Okay. I'll be the opponent for the last contender," said Iruka, May Ino Yamanaka please step onto the fighting ring? Hi, Ino said with a nod of her head as she walked calmly onto the fighting ring. She then got into her fighting stance, followed soon after by Iruka doing the same. Ready, go, Iruka said right before he rushed at Ino. Ino mirrored his movements, and the fight officially began. It started with Ino and Iruka bashing forearm to forearm. Despite Iruka not really trying, he weighed a lot more, so Ino got pushed back, but didn't slip. After holding it for a bit, Ino spun out of the way, causing Iruka to stumble forward. Ino took advantage of this and landed an axe kick on Iruka's back. This wasn't enough however, as Iruka managed to catch himself with one of his legs before he fully fell over. This ticked Ino off a bit, feeling that she should have gotten that, but that didn't distract her from dodging a fist barreling towards her face. Then came another punch which actually managed to graze her cheek. This started almost 30 seconds of Ino on the defensive, until Iruka screwed up enough for Ino to kick him in the abdomen. Ino then fluidly twirled into a sweep kick which knocked Iruka over, and then Ino placed her knee on Iruka, weighing him down. Okay Ino, you pass, Iruka said. Ino brought her knee up, and that was everyone. Iruka got up from the ground and brushed some dirt off of him before saying, I need to take care of getting Mizuki to the hospital, said Iruka, so you guys have 45 minutes to get over to the forest arena for the ninjutsu test. Do whatever you like in the meantime. Hokage's office. In the Hokage's office we see an old, gray-haired man taking a whiff of his pipe and looking at the graduation exams through his crystal ball. This was the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, looking into the Genin graduation exam after sensing Naruto's vast chakra reserves coming from the academy. The aged Hokage smirked as he watched all of the surprised faces of Naruto's fellow students as he displayed his abilities. This was seriously entertaining to watch to say the least, and his blushing at Hinata. He finally let it out for the world to see, huh? And during the graduation exam too, thought the Sarutobi, he is truly something, beating me in both Shuriken Jutsu and Taijutsu. Speaking of which, you probably deserved that Mizuki. Hiruzen let out a small smirk, barely able to hide how proud he was of Naruto right now. I should treat him to ramen today, he deserves it, thought Hiruzen. Ninja Academy. In the Ninja Academy, Naruto, Hinata, Ino, Shikamaru and Choji are sitting together in front of the forest, having a light-hearted conversation to pass the time. So Naruto, 4 years of disguise and humiliation to appear weak and you blow it on the last day. What a drag, said Shikamaru. Shut up, you couldn't keep it up for a week, said Naruto, it would be too much of a drag now would it? Yup, sounds about right, said Ino, letting out a toothy grin that looks like a cheaper version of Naruto's. You even dragged us into this, said Choji. Then his face turned into a grin before saying, but the reaction of everyone was priceless. Yeah, Hinata said quietly, they are still looking at you, Naruto-kun. Naruto raised an eyebrow before looking behind him, seeing that Hinata was, in fact, right. Everyone was still looking at him, some in slight terror, some in astonishment, some in slight admiration, some trying to size him up, and then there's Sasuke, miserably failing to look like he doesn't care. And he enjoyed every last one. Yeah I guess so, said Naruto, I guess it's not every day you see an academy graduate who can beat a Jonin. It may have seemed egotistical, but he felt like he deserved it after such a long period of hiding. The Ino Shika Cho kids nodded in response, but Hinata was actually surprised. Naruto, would you really go that far? Said Hinata. Ino answered that one. Actually yeah, said Ino, before he turned 7 actually. Hinata looked at Ino disbelieving. Yeah, sad story actually, said Naruto with a sad smile. It was my 7th birthday in 3 months from then, and some ninja was sent to kill me. Later clarified to be a missing nin from Sanagakure. It was weird too, said Choji, when I heard the scream of an adult, I went in there and saw Naruto with fire surrounding him, and red eyes. Suddenly flashbacks of Naruto saving her in that alleyway came up. The orange flames, the stab wounds, and just about anything she could have seen looking at Naruto's back. Then it took a more positive note, seeing his face for the first time, his blue eyes, his confident smile, and asking for his name a second time as an excuse to see him more. Hinata let a blush at that, much to everyone's bewilderment. But then Ino changed the conversation topic. So, Naruto, Hinata, do you guys like each other or something? Asked Ino. Don't think I missed those blushes earlier, so what's up? Ino was mainly teasing Naruto with this. It was fairly obvious the shy Hyuga took a liking to the bold Uzumaki, but the slightest feeling of the other way around was quite different. Did she just ask Naruto-kun if he likes me? Did she say he blush at me? Thought Hinata, taking Ino's words to heart. No, not at all, Naruto blatantly said. She is pretty, but that doesn't mean I like her that much. But alas, I guess it's not wait. Did he call me pretty? Hinata thought to herself, originally depressed but doing mental somersaults in her head by the end of it. Her face was burning a deep shade of red as she thought about what Naruto said, which didn't go unnoticed by Naruto. Just not in the way you'd expect. Huh, Hinata, your face is turning red, said Naruto. Are you coming down with something? Maybe today wasn't the best day for the test? Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji's sweat dropped from that as they thought in unison. First to finish the written test. Has the Sharingan to read a person's body language and enough of a tactical mind to take on my dad, but can't figure out Hinata has a crush on him. What a pain. No Naruto, I'm fine. Really, Hinata said as the blush started to subside. Poof. A large poof of smoke suddenly popped into existence, and when it subsided, Iruka stood there, with a neutral expression on his face. Everyone, we are at the area where we will perform our ninjutsu test, Iruka said, and since Mizuki is now in good hands, let's not waste any more time. The rules are simple. This is a test where you will show your aptitude for ninjutsu and genjutsu, said Iruka. The pointing system is also simple. You will demonstrate ninjutsu and genjutsu. Genjutsu release, transformation and the clone jutsu are each 1 point. However, you need 6 points to pass, so if you make more than 3 clones we will consider it 2 points instead of 1. And the rest of them you need to earn by displaying your own jutsus. Any questions? There were none, so Iruka decided to get started. Again, relevant characters only. Aburame Shino, may you please demonstrate your jutsus, Iruka said. Shino simply nodded before walking right in front of the Iruka and prepared for a jutsu. Henge, Shino said before a cloud of smoke enveloped him, showing Iruka himself right there. Perfect besides a nose scare a bit too small. Then Shino put his hands in a different sign before saying, Bunshin no jutsu. More smoke enveloped the area before we saw 5 Irukas standing there. Shino then dispelled them and turned back into himself in time to prepare for the genjutsu test. Slowly, Shino's world started spinning, people started looking distorted, and his depth perception started getting weird, and Shino knew exactly what this was. Genjutsu. So in order to respond to this, Shino put his hands in the ram sign and said, Kai. With that, Shino's sight returned to normal, as if the whole genjutsu never happened. Okay, that's 4 points, you have 2 more points to get, Iruka said. Again, Shino nodded in response and made 7 hand signs before a log appeared in his place. Instead, he was found next to a tree some 50-something feet away from Iruka. Okay Shino, you have 1 more point to get, unless you would like to try performing the substitution in under 6 hand signs, in which you would get 2 points for, said Iruka. No, I have 1 more jutsu, said Shino. He then pointed his hand out and Kikai bugs came out, and surrounded a nearby training dummy. Beetle sphere, Shino said as his bugs attached themselves to the dummy. You can't see this now, but the bugs would be sucking out an opponent's chakra as of now. Okay, very impressive, said Iruka. Anything else? No sensei, said Shino. Well then, with D-rank genjutsu expulsion, 4 clones, transformation, 8 hand sign substitution, and the Aburame style. Beetle sphere, Shino passes with 6 points, said Iruka. Next up, Choji Akamichi. I'm going to list out the points and jutsus for the rest, up until Naruto and Sasuke. Choji Akamichi. D-rank genjutsu expulsion, 2 clones, transformation, 9 hand sign substitution. Akamichi style. Expansion jutsu, Akamichi style. Human bullet tank, 6 points. Sakura Haruno. C-rank genjutsu expulsion, 2 clones, transformation, 7 hand sign substitution. Genjutsu art. Visible distort, 6 points. Hinata Hyuga. D-rank genjutsu expulsion, 3 clones, transformation, 5 hand sign substitution. Byakugan. 8 trigrams. 16 palms. 7 points. Kiba Inazuka. D-rank genjutsu expulsion, 3 clones, transformation, 8 hand sign substitution, Inuzuka art. All fours jutsu, ninpo. Nose of the nin hound. 6 points. Shikamaru Nara. C rank genjutsu expulsion, 2 clones, transformation, 8 hand sign substitution, Nara art. Shadow possession jutsu, 8 meter past shadow. 6 points. Sasuke Uchiha. Asked to go second to last. Naruto Uzumaki. Asked to go last. Ino Yamanaka. D rank genjutsu expulsion, 2 clones, transformation, 8 hand sign substitution, Yamanaka art. Mind transfer jutsu, genjutsu art. Hormonal uprise. 6 points. Now that everyone else did their techniques, the last 2 are going to go. Uchiha Sasuke, may you please demonstrate your jutsus, said Iruka. Hi, Sasuke said, fully prepared due to the fact that he recovered from lifting 35 kilo just earlier. Immediately, Iruka cast a D-rank genjutsu on Sasuke, which Sasuke broke with ease. Seeing this, Iruka cast a C-rank genjutsu on him, which Sasuke struggled with for a bit before breaking. Iruka listed this as C-rank genjutsu release. Then Sasuke made the transformation jutsu hand sign and turned into Iruka, perfect down to the last detail. Soon after, he got into the Bunshin no Jutsu hand sign and molded his chakra, causing a large poof of smoke. When the smoke dissipated, 9 Irukas stood there for a few seconds. When those seconds ended, Sasuke dissipated his jutsu, turning from 9 Irukas to 1 Sasuke. He then made 3 hand signs before a log appeared in his place, startling everyone. 3 hand signs thought Iruka, impressive. Sasuke then did a substitution with the log he substituted with to avoid walking and stood still for a while. When he stopped standing still, he then flashed through the hand signs: horse, tiger, serpent, ram, monkey, boar, horse, tiger in under 3 seconds and made some sort of nozzle with his hand over his mouth. He took a deep breath in and then, Kaden, fireball jutsu. All of a sudden, a fireball slightly taller than Sasuke got launched at a nearby tree, turning the side that it is into charcoal. Sensei, I'm done, said Sasuke as he started walking towards the sidelines, ignoring the screaming fangirls and putting his hands in his pockets. With C-rank genjutsu expulsion, the transformation jutsu, 9 clones, 3 hand sign substitution and Kaden. Fireball jutsu, you score 9 points, putting yourself at the top 2% in history for chakra-based techniques for the graduation exam. Said Iruka. The fangirls were screaming with joy at this, saying things like, that's my Sasuke, and, I always believed in you. Okay, will you guys calm down already? Iruka screamed at girls again, so loud that his head grew bigger than the rest of his body, but this didn't deter the fangirls at all, so Naruto had to take extreme measures. He released a wave of killing intent at the fangirls, effectively shutting them up. But Naruto was far too annoyed with them, so he increased the killing intent, causing the group to shake uncontrollably and collapse due to weak knees. With them unconscious, Naruto let out a satisfied smirk. The rest of the class would have done so as well if it weren't due to the fear of a man who knocked out 12 girls without even touching them. Oh okay, Iruka said. Naruto Uzumaki, you requested to go last, so now it's your turn. May you please demonstrate your ninjutsu? Okay sensei, Naruto said, just be glad I knocked out the fangirls. We'd go deaf listening to their complaining after I get first place. Everyone gave Naruto a skeptical look, except Hinata, Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji, as Naruto walked in front of the forest, and got ready for the test. When he got on the field, he saw Iruka prepare a D-rank genjutsu, so he stopped him. Iruka-sensei, said Naruto, causing Iruka to stop. Try a B-rank on me, you'll be surprised. You sure? Iruka asked. Yeah, said Naruto, all the while hiding his Sharingan behind a subtle genjutsu. Okay, said Iruka as he went through 11 hand signs, genjutsu art. Tree binding illusion. All of a sudden, Iruka slowly disappeared from Naruto's sight, which wasn't a surprise to Naruto. Then, a sprout came out from the ground, which quickly grew into a tree right behind Naruto's back. Then, appendages came out from the tree which fastened Naruto to the tree, but Naruto still made no move to struggle. Then came the last part, where Iruka's upper body sprouted from the tree right above Naruto, holding a kunai which he placed at Naruto's neck. Can you escape this, Naruto? asked Iruka from above him. Naruto answered this not with words, but action. Iruka suddenly felt different. He wasn't holding a kunai at Naruto's throat anymore, but his arms were at his sides. He tried moving his arms, but he couldn't. Looking down, he saw himself held by a tree with branches wrapping around his being. He then looked straight to see Naruto with a wise smirk on his face and a look of pride in his ocean blue eyes. Genjutsu reversal, Naruto said. Okay Naruto, may you please let me go so I can document this, said Iruka. Sure, Naruto said. Just then, the tree dissipated behind Iruka and he recorded this with a look of slight shock on his face. This didn't go unnoticed by the class, but while they didn't see the tree, they knew Naruto was under a genjutsu that kept him still. And suddenly Iruka fell under that same genjutsu after Naruto escaped, claiming he did a genjutsu reversal. After Iruka documented that, Naruto made a single hand sign, and then he was a log. Iruka and the rest of the class started looking around until they saw Naruto sitting on the branch of a tree, baffling everybody. One hand seal substitution, impressive, Iruka said, documenting it as a B-rank jutsu because it was under 2 hand signs. After that, Naruto switched back to his earlier position with the log, and made a hand sign, one that none of the students have ever seen. It resembled the ox seal more than anything, but was closer to a plus sign made by the pointer and middle fingers of both his hands. Shadow clone jutsu, Naruto said as puffs of smoke surrounded Iruka. When the smoke dissipated, Iruka saw that he was surrounded by 14 Narutos. Yeah, high five Iruka-sensei, Naruto said as he ran up to him. Iruka put up his hand uncaringly, expecting a prank like his hand passing through the clones, so it came to him as a surprise when the hand connected. Huh, I see you're not as much of a prankster anymore, said Iruka. To which Naruto just tilted his head to the side in confusion. What I mean is that I thought you would use one of the clones so that my hand would just pass through yours. What are you talking about? Naruto said as he took a kunai out, I am a clone. To prove his point, Naruto just stabbed his wrist with the kunai, making him dispel. Iruka and all of the students, again, despite the obvious 3, looked at him wide-eyed, never seen a solid clone before. Is that what I think it is? Asked Iruka, rubbing his eyes. Yup, multi-shadow clones, cool huh? Said Naruto. And now the real party starts. Story ends. Extras. This was Naruto's second option for stopping the fangirls. Okay, will you guys calm down already? Iruka screamed at girls again, so loud that his head grew bigger than the rest of his body, but this didn't deter the fangirls at all, so Naruto had to take extreme measures. Pheromone suppressor release, said Naruto after making a few hand signs. Suddenly the girls started calming down and looking at Naruto. Naruto, what did you do? Asked Iruka. Can you come a bit closer? It has to do with my tenant, said Naruto. Okay, said Iruka as he walked closer, and put his ear near Naruto's mouth, signaling him to say. Okay. Do you know how all mammals give off pheromones that attract the opposite, right? Said Naruto, to which Iruka simply nodded. Well, think of the Kyuubi, he's a gigantic, all-powerful fox and gives off a lot of pheromones, so I had to develop a way to suppress these pheromones in order to not get tons of attention wherever I go. So that means that now, started Iruka. Yeah, said Naruto. In the Inuzuka compound, Hana was currently in bed, resting before the inevitable celebration for Kiba's graduation when her super-powered nose caught a whiff of something, and whatever it was attractive, to say the least. She sniffed the air once more, taking in the amazing aroma, and then got out of bed to pounce on whatever is making that enticing smell. Back at the academy, the girl's eyes started to gain a glint in them as the smell became more and more potent. So fearing something may happen, he was about to form the hand signs to reapply the jutsu, but then he realized that he couldn't move his arms, and that he was on the ground. Looking up, he saw none other than Kiba's sister on top of him, keeping his arms on the ground, and a feral grin on her face. Hana, what are you doing here? Asked Kiba, to which Hana ignored. Not so slowly more and more women including Yugao, Sume, Anko and seemingly every teenage girl in Konoha started entering academy grounds, with glints in their eyes, and soon enough, everybody knew what was about to go down. Naruto, it's too much, turn it off. Screamed Iruka, panicking at what may happen to Naruto's, and maybe the other kids a little, after this. It requires hand signs, which as you can see, I can't do right now, he said, looking up at Hana to show this. So, what you're saying is? Iruka started. Yeah, said Naruto simply, with a horrified look in his eye. Is that what I think it is? Asked Iruka, rubbing his eyes. Yup, multi-shadow clones, cool huh? Said Naruto. And now the real party starts. Real party? Asked Iruka, mind boggled. At 16 points, you've displayed enough ninjutsu to tie with 10th place, and now you say you're gonna be serious? Yeah, did I stutter? Asked Naruto genuinely. No, but if you are serious, you may begin, said Iruka, tempted to see what will happen. Naruto simply nodded at this before he ran through 8 hand signs in under 3 seconds, ending with the dog seal, before slamming both his hands on the ground. Doden. Twin Mud Dragons Jutsu. Naruto said. Directly after, 2 serpentine-style mud dragons, with red eyes somehow, rose from the ground, looking at the forest. He then ran through hand signs, ram, horse, dragon, ox and tiger before saying, Kaden, dragon flame bomb. Soon enough, the dragons' mouths opened and built up fire, only to launch in a series of powerful fireballs. While the fireballs were still in the air, 2 clones came up from behind Naruto and stood next to him, forming 5 hand signs in rapid succession before saying, Futon. Great breakthrough. It didn't even take a second before massive gusts of wind came out of both of the clones' mouths and headed straight towards the continuously launching fireballs, making the fireballs larger and faster moving. This went on for at least 30 seconds, massive fireballs launching against dozens of trees, lighting them on fire. Iruka was starting to panic, seeing as to how Naruto was doing nothing about the burning section of the forest. Naruto, do I need to call the fire corps? Asked Iruka. Nah, I'll take care of that now, said Naruto. As he said that, 4 more Narutos stood in the row. Now we see 7 Narutos standing side by side of each other with approximately 3 feet of space between one another, standing still, channeling chakra throughout his body, and then he began. All of the Narutos made identical hand signs, at the exact same time, at a rate of about 1 every 0.8 seconds. And after 10 seconds, he didn't stop, concerning everyone. The fire was spreading slightly every second, so the longer it took, the less likely Naruto was to be able to put it out. 20 seconds passed, still nothing. Naruto was still making hand signs, and the students were starting to panic. It wasn't even 7 seconds later when the Narutos made their last hand sign, and slammed their right palms into the ground. Sweden. Tidal lock, Naruto said. Then, with no other warning, water started pouring out of the ground towards the trees, and not a little bit either. Tens of thousands of gallons came rushing at the fire like a rapid, diluting the fire, but not without a lot of steam. But this is what Naruto planned. When the steam was at its climax, Naruto made 4 hand signs before saying, Raiden, electromagnetic murder. Soon, a stream of electricity moved towards the steam, and due to the fact that steam is made of water, it was conducted through the steam, causing a large pulse of pure electricity to show. Everyone looked at what just occurred in silence, except the fangirls who were knocked out, not believing their eyes. Oh okay, and Naruto, said Iruka waveringly, trying his best to seem professional about this. You have 44 points, do you have any more to show us? I mean, I could show you guys 40 more, but I'll leave it at 2, said Naruto, much to everyone's further amazement. Naruto then took out a scroll and opened it, revealing it was completely blank, and set it on the ground in front of him. He then took out a brush and some ink, and set that on the ground in front of him. He then infused chakra in the brush, dipped it in ink, and got to work. At speeds that seemed blurry to the untrained eye, Naruto wrote down an elaborate seal on the scroll and quickly closed it. Naruto made 2 hand signs, and then in a poof of smoke, it suddenly shrunk to be 2 inches tall and not nearly as wide. He then got a kunai, and opened off the bottom to reveal that the hilt was hollow, and placed the mini scroll within it. He then put the bottom back on and got ready to throw it at a tree. Everyone looked in anticipation, wanting to see what that elaborate seal was. Naruto then threw the kunai, and it hit a large tree. The moment it hit, the tree quickly lit in blue flames, and it was gone. Not in ash either, just gone, without trace. You wouldn't even think a tree was there if not for the holes where the roots once were. And for the last jutsu, all 14 clones circle around Iruka and jumped at him. He then made the hand sign for the transformation jutsu in midair, and the moment Iruka knew what was going on it was too late. Henge. All of the Narutos said in unison, and in a puff of smoke they transformed. When the smoke let out, everyone, especially Iruka, could see 14 adult, naked, female Narutos giving Iruka a lot of attention. Hugging his arms, rubbing up against him, and talking about Iruka in a seductive manner, addressing him as Iruka-sama. Eventually, it proved too much, and Iruka blasted back, like a rocket of noseblood. "Hey, knocked out 2 senseis in one day, I'm on a roll," Naruto said while releasing the naked girl transformation. Ignoring the threatening glare Ino was giving him for using that move. Again, after he was done telling himself how good of a job he did, he reached into his back pocket and retrieved a scroll. He opened the scroll, revealing a sealing array. He infused his chakra, making the contents release, revealing 50 scrolls. These scrolls had names of jutsus on them like Kaden, Massive Fireball Jutsu, and Sweden, Raging Water Wall. He kept sorting through the scrolls until he found the one on the information to his original seal, so Iruka could properly grade it. While this was happening, the class noticed some scrolls with familiar jutsu names, and realized what this was. "Naruto, are those all the jutsus you know?" asked Kiba. "Yeah," said Naruto, "pretty cool huh?" Kiba just nodded in response. After that, Iruka got up. Naruto gave him the scroll. Iruka gave out the Hiteites to everyone and Naruto, Hinata, Choji, Ino and Shikamaru talked amongst each other while everyone was recovering from what just happened. Time skip 1 hour. "Okay, bye guys, see ya tomorrow," Naruto said to everyone in the class as he walked home with Ino, Shikamaru and Choji. "So, how do you guys think you did?" Ino said, trying to start conversation. "What kind of question is that? He told us if we passed or not," said Naruto. "I don't think I passed though," Naruto said, kidding, but not showing it. "Naruto," said Choji, "you got first place for Shuriken Jutsu, left Mizuki in a crater, and left the third Hokage in the dust. You cannot say you failed." Yeah, I know," said Naruto, waving it off. "Anywho, you guys excited for ninja training?" said Naruto. Said Ino nervously. "Of course," said Choji. "It's a bit too much of a drag, I prefer to do cloud watching with you guys," said Shikamaru. "Well, I prefer to go pick flowers with Naru-kun again, but we don't all get what we want," said Ino with a sigh. "Besides Choji," said Shikamaru. Asked Ino as she tilted her head sideways in questioning. "You don't know," screamed Choji like it was the end of the world. Which in response, Naruto just held the ridge of his nose in anticipation and mild annoyance. "No, not really," said Ino. "Today is the day of our 20th quarterly eat-off," screamed Choji with fire in his eyes. "Hopefully I catch up," said Naruto. "I'm losing to this guy 12-7. "You will never catch up, you don't have the stomach," said Choji. Screamed Naruto. "No way, you can't stand up to this gluttony," said Choji with a huff of his chest. "Oh, how do I approach your level, oh gluttonous one," said Naruto sarcastically. "The trick is in the new seafood diet," said Choji like he was about to make a massive revelation. "Huh?" said Naruto in confusion. "Yeah, the rules are simple. You see food and you eat it," said Choji. To which the 3 others could barely hold back a sigh. "It's a good pun and you know it," said Choji. "Choji," said Shikamaru, "the day you make a decent food pun is the day I run a marathon voluntarily." "HMPH," grunted Choji in annoyance, muttering something along the lines of, "I'll show you." "Anyways, let's hope that he doesn't drink the sake," said Shikamaru. "We don't want it turning out like that extra." Chapter 3s. "What are you talking about?" said Naruto. "What's an extra?" "Ignore that," said Shikamaru. A few minutes later, in the Hyuga compound, Hinata just got home from the academy, content with her scores, and a smile of pure, unadulterated joy on her face from her conversations with her beloved Naruto-kun. This was the only thing that kept her mood up as, on request, she had to go to her dad's office within the clan compound. So she walked over there, taking a few turns in the hallways before she got to the door of her dad's office. She quietly knocked on the door and waited a few seconds before she heard, "Come in." Hinata opened the door to her dad's office and sat down on the floor, waiting for her dad to raise his head from the paperwork he is buried in. Hinata's dad, Hiyashi, was an old man with an overly serious, stuck-up demeanor to him. He had tan skin, long, dark brown hair, and the classic, light lavender-colored eyes of the Hyuga clan. He wore military green clan robes over a white gi, and while you couldn't see it then, also wore shinobi sandals. Slowly, Hiyashi looked up from his mound of paperwork and addressed his daughter. "Yes, Hinata, I'm glad you came." Hinata nodded at this and got prepared to speak on the topic. "So, on to business," said Hiyashi. "How did you do on the graduation exam?" "Pretty good, I guess," said Hinata. "More specific," stated Hiyashi. "Well, for the Shuriken Jutsu test I got 22.7 points, managing to just barely get myself in third place for that test," said Hinata. "Okay. Expected I guess," said Hiyashi with an emotionless mask on his face. "How about the jutsu test?" "I got third place on that too, being one of the 3 in the class to exceed 6 points on that one." This class isn't too special I guess, thought Hiyashi, not knowing just how wrong he was. "And the taijutsu?" asked Hiyashi. Hinata looked down in slight embarrassment at her placing for the taijutsu, expecting a not-so-pleasant reaction. "I got third place on that too." At this, Hiyashi's face turned into a frown, not wanting to get too upset without getting the full picture. "Who were the ones who scored higher than you?" "It was the same 2 people each test who beat me," said Hinata. "2 prodigies, it appears something has slipped my observation, though Hiyashi." "And who would they be?" "Well, the one who got second at everything was Sasuke," said Hinata quietly, bracing for her dad's reaction at the first place. "Someone better than Sasuke?" thought Hiyashi. "Is this some kind of new arrival?" "And the first?" asked Hiyashi. Naruto-kun got first," said Hinata timidly. At this Hiyashi's first reaction was to go wide-eyed, then his eyes narrowed, believing that Hinata has lied to him, giving him false information. The nerve. "Hinata, are you lying to me?" said Hiyashi, suppressing an explosion of anger. "What? No, I would never do that to San," said Hinata back. "You expect me to believe that deadlast prankster beat you and Sasuke?" Hiyashi screamed at his daughter and stood up, towering over his daughter. He would not tolerate a lying daughter and potential heir for that matter. "No San, I'm serious," said Hinata adamantly. "I wouldn't lie to you." "Yeah you are, you're just protecting you stupid crush," said Hiyashi. "I'm not," said Hinata, starting to get quite annoyed with her father's childish stubbornness. "She's right," said a mysterious Anbu from right behind him. This Anbu in particular wasn't wearing a cloak, making it fairly obvious it was a she. Her hair was purple and long, going down just about her lower back. She wore the normal Anbu plate and sleeveless flak jacket. She also wore an Anbu mask with the appearance of a cat. Yes, I have done the research, that mask is supposed to be a cat, and had a sword on her back. Hokage-sama is requesting a meeting on that topic, and is expecting your presence immediately. Sayonara. After saying that, she shunshined away, leaving a relatively dumbfounded Hiyashi and a relieved Hinata. "Well, it appears that you weren't lying to me," said Hiyashi in his normal monotone voice. "Good job. I guess. See you later." Hiyashi then shunshined away, leaving Hinata alone in the clan compound. In the meeting place at the base of Hokage Tower, Hiyashi just got at the meeting place and saw that he was currently in a council-like circular room that he was all too familiar with. Looking at the desk, he saw that he was the last one to arrive, but not by a large margin because he saw an overweight member of the civilian council and Shikaku himself still walking to their spots. So he decided to take his seat as well. Soon enough he sat down in between the Nara and Aburame clan heads, and awaited the arrival of the Hokage. This didn't take too long however as the Hokage entered the room not even 2 minutes later and took his seat at the head. "The meeting has begun. Hello all who have joined us for this meeting today," said the Hokage in a commanding voice. "I propose a motion on the discussion of Naruto's reveal. Those for, raise your placards." Everyone who agreed on this motion raised their placards while the rest kept it down. The Hokage did a quick count and then said the results. "Okay, 17 for, 5 against. The discussion shall be set into action," said the aged Hokage. "Why did so many of you agree to discuss this?" asked one of the civilian councilmen who disagreed. "He's just a weak, snot-nosed demon that has been nothing but trouble to this village. First of all, he's not a demon. Second of all, I'm sure that for the most part, when the Anbu picked you guys up, they told you guys that this was about what Naruto has chosen to reveal today," said Hiruzen. "HMPH, and that would be?" said the same councilman. "His real strength," said the Hokage. Even if we were to believe you, that just means he's not dead last, still isn't worth talking about, said a councilwoman this time, also not agreeing to this conversation. Well, he's not dead last, that's for sure, said Hiruzen as he took out a file. He then threw this file to Danzo and told him to read it. Danzo said as he opened the file. This is the results of the graduation exams. Anyone besides Naruto you want me to read? Yeah, read Sasuke's as well, give him something to compare to, said the Hokage. Danzo nodded at this and turned the pages until he got to Uchiha Sasuke in the file. Okay, Sasuke. He actually did pretty good on the graduation, getting 10th place in the history of the academy graduation for Shuriken Jutsu, and the top 2% in both the Jutsu and in Taijutsu test, said Danzo. That's right, that's our Sasuke, said a not-so-calm councilman, showing off to basically no one. To which the Hokage not so quietly cleared his throat in order to get back on topic. Okay, now, read Naruto, the Hokage said, a growing smirk present on his face. Danzo simply nodded and turned to the next page, and instantly, his eyes, widened to the size of dinner plates. What is it, Danzo? Asked Hiashi. This kid, this supposed dead last, got first place in the history of the exam, on every section, said Danzo, absolutely dumbfounded. What? No way, what specifically did he get? Said Sume, head of the Inuzuka clan. He got 48.8 points on the Shuriken Jutsu test, beating the now second placer, Shisui Uchiha's score by 1.3 points, said Danzo. He used a jutsu, didn't he? Said Isaho, head of the Hitaki clan. Yes, that is a thing. Yes, the Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu to be exact, said Danzo. But that's a B rank, responded Isaho. Yes it is, responded the Hokage. Okay, now onto the Taijutsu test, said Danzo, not wanting to stray off topic. He did astoundingly well on that too, scoring a perfect score, showing perfect form and impressive strength, for the 1.8 seconds that they even saw it. How in the hell is that possible? Screamed Takahawa, head of the Sarutobi clan. How he did it? A combination of weight training, resistance seals and senjutsu manipulation, said Shikaku. How would you know? Asked the overweight loudmouth of the civilian council. Maybe because I knew of this, considering he has lived with me for a large portion of his life, said Shikaku. So did I, said Choza. And I, said Inoichi. And I, said the Hokage. Then why did you keep this from us? Asked Hiashi. Because he asked us to, said Hiruzen. Why would he do that? Said a random councilman. He intended to keep the facade up so he gets partnered up with the top shinobi and kunoichi in the class, but I guess he had enough of it on the last day, said the Hokage. But how did he hide his chakra? Said Hiashi, I'm sure my clan's eyes would have picked something up. That is thanks to a permanent transformation seal of his own design, said Inoichi. That doesn't change anything. When you do a transformation, your chakra reserves don't change, said Hiashi. You misunderstand me, it's not a ninjutsu, it's a fuinjutsu, and one of his 2 A-rank ones at that, said Inoichi. A transformation fuinjutsu? Asked Hiashi. Yeah, it's his original design, said Inoichi. With this seal, it requires a small portion of the user's blood within the seal's ink, and when constructed correctly, can transform the user, physically, into anything they choose, only able to be undone or spotted by placing the user's blood on said seal. So, a seal that bypasses the Byakugan, said Hiashi mostly to himself. His pride hurt because his eyes, the ones held in such high regards by all of Konoha, is surpassed by a seal made by a 12-year-old kid. Yes, said Inoichi. Now, back to taijutsu, said the Hokage. Naruto has some level of mastery in 4 different taijutsu types. Academy style, Grey Wolf style, Ken Monk style and Kumite style. Wait, but isn't Kumite style the one only mastered by Jiraiya, and the 1st and 4th Hokage? Asked Isaho. Indeed, said the Hokage, it requires for the accumulation of senjutsu on any given part of a person's body, and while Naruto can't intake the natural energy, he has an uncanny ability to control it to an extent, allowing its formation on the palm of his hand in order to increase the strength of his blows. That's quite the powerful taijutsu, said Danzo. Indeed, said the Hokage, and before we get off topic again, read out his scores for the jutsu test. Yeah, that's easily the most impressive section, said Danzo. Even more impressive than his ability to manipulate natural energy? Asked Sume. Slightly, said Danzo. Sasuke's score. 9. Itachi's score. 17. Shisui's score. 19. Orochimaru's score. 20. My score. 22. Our Hokage's score. 29. And with this in mind, Naruto's score is 53. At this, everyone had different reactions. The civilian council was seething. Most of the shinobi council had their jaws firmly attached with the floor. The Ino Shika Cho gave out wise smirks. Danzo somehow kept up his emotionless facade and the Hokage let out a chuckle. Everyone looked at the Hokage as he gave out the chuckle, and grew furtherly confused as it transformed into a full-blown laugh. "Hokage-sama?" asked Hiashi, not knowing what could possibly be so funny. No, it's nothing really," said the Hokage. "It clearly isn't nothing, Hokage-sama," said one of the civilian council members. "It's just that he was severely holding back and that is all," said the Hokage. "What?" said Hiashi. "Yeah, I hold quarterly tests for Naruto to see where he stands, the most recent of which is where he beats Asuma," said the Hokage. "Anywho, I require him to display every one of his jutsu every test, and he holds 50 in his possession, of which include 25 ninjutsu, 8 genjutsu and the rest fuinjutsu." "Wait, but with 53 points, and you saying he severely held back, that means he has some highly ranked techniques," said Toroa, head of the Kurama clan. "You can say that," said Hiruzen. "Well then, how many of his 25 ninjutsu are above D rank?" asked Toroa. "Well, that would be 21, said Hiruzen, dumbfounding everyone. And that is when Toroa decided to take it one step further. "Above C rank?" asked Toroa. 13, said Hiruzen. "But he's not even an official genin," screamed Sume. "But he has been training non-stop for the past 8 years, said Hiruzen. "He's still not even 13. Replied Sume, still mind blown beyond all belief. "What does age have to do with it?" said the Hiruzen wisely. "Maybe his chakra reserves," responded Sume, with a tone that refers to it as obvious. "That, my friend, is no issue," responded Hiruzen. "Naruto's chakra pool is larger than any 2 jonin of this village put together." "But how?" said Isaho. "He may be an Uzumaki and stores that demon of his, but his chakra network shouldn't be able to handle so much chakra." "Yes it can," said Choza. "Don't underestimate his training. He's put blood, sweat and tears into his training since he was 4, and the results are clearly shown. On top of that he's an Uzumaki with a tenet that fixes any and all damage to his chakra network." This didn't get a response from anyone as they didn't have anything to say. In the silence, the third Hokage realized he had other matters to discuss, so he ended the meeting then and there. "Okay everyone, we have the matter of the genin teams to discuss, so I will release a true full file of Naruto into the archives for anyone with more questions," said Hiruzen. "I now present the motion to adjourn this meeting. Any oppositions?" No one raised their hands, so the Hokage ended the meeting, ready to start what this meeting was supposed to be about. 20 minutes later, "Does everyone agree on the members of Team 6? asked Hiruzen to the 22 others in the circular room. There were no objections to the response, so Hiruzen put Team 6 down as Torio Akido, Amino Hitaki, and Sophie Akare. "Okay, now for Team 7. I will be having Kakashi Hitaki as the Junin sensei," Hiruzen said, leaving mutters in its wake, "and the squad members are Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke, and Uzumaki Naruto." "Nani?" said all of the people in the room. "Any issues?" asked Hiruzen. "Yeah," Sume said boldly, "if we are to believe what you said earlier, that means that you are putting both of the class prodigies together in one team, not to mention Sakura. She's no dead last herself. The teams are completely off balance." "Yes, that may be true, but balance isn't always what's important in a team. I put them together so they can get stronger as a whole, so they can grow to be like a family to one another," said Hiruzen. Everyone looked at Hiruzen in question, knowing full well that that is not the whole reason. "May you please elaborate," said a member of the civilian council.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.